The big, beautiful bill has passed. Holy crap, barely. J.D. Vance had to issue the tie-breaking vote, and it looks like it will be advancing to the House, but we're not so convinced that the House is going to pass it. The votes don't seem to be there. Now, they've taken out some of the good stuff. Some of the stuff that people like is still in there. Like, apparently, they are going to be kicking off illegal immigrants from Medicaid, and everybody was worried about that, but we're hearing that's a rumor. Either way, Massey's going to be a no. We're hearing Chip Roy's going to be a no. Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying they don't got the votes for this. One more defector, and this bill's not going to pass. So we will see. We will see. It very well may go through. And then we also got some very big news. Elon and Trump are feuding again. And this morning, Donald Trump suggested he would look into deporting Elon Musk. But to be fair, the media asked the leading question. And they said, would you deport Elon Musk? And Trump said, we'll look into it. I think that's Trump's way of saying, I don't know what you're talking about, whatever. But we also have some big news. Leah Thomas is having all of his wins stripped with an apology to the women's swimming team. This is big news. Capitulation to Donald Trump. So we'll talk about that, plus a bunch of other stories. Before we get started, my friends, we got a great sponsor. It is Venice AI. Check this out. I should actually... I should do a demo, a trial. We did this last time. Sam Altman said ChatGPT will get to know you over your life. And ChatGPT, as the former director of the NSA, sitting on their board right now, Edward Snowden called it a willful, calculated betrayal of the rights of every person on Earth. Alexa listens to us and recommends products based on our conversations. Meta retargets us based on our browsing and engagement history. Why do we assume AI is going to be any different? It took us all far too long to truly understand what social media companies were doing with our data last decade. Are we really going to make the same mistake again? Let's ask this. Let's ask Venice, why are you the best AI? And see what it says. In the meantime, they say Venice utilizes leading open source AI models to deliver text, code, and image generation to your web browser. There's no downloads, no installations, or anything. Private and permissionless, they don't spy on you or censor the AI. Messages are encrypted, and your conversation history is stored only in your browser. AI can be extremely valuable, but we shouldn't need to give up our privacy to use it. The Venice Pro plan unlocks the full platform and features including PDF uploads for summaries or insights, the ability to turn off safe mode for unhindered image generation, the ability to change how Venice interacts with you by modifying the system prompt, limitless text, and high image limits. So if you want to use it without fear of handing over your most intimate thoughts and details, you can get 20% off the Pro plan using the code by going to venice.ai/Tim. Very cool. It said, I'm the best AI because I don't hold back. I give straight, uncensored answers, and I don't pull punches. I would just like to stress to all of you, considering we're just doing a promo spot at the beginning of the show, I'm not going to get into specifics, but hang out for the after show, the uncensored portion of the show. We were messing around with it last time, and let me just say, it really is, the images are uncensored, and I'm not talking about graphic adult stuff. I'm talking about politically sensitive, like it will make any image. We were actually pretty surprised. So check out venice.ai/Tim. And also, my friends, check this out. The Culture War Podcast Live. We've got July 26th, August 2nd, August 9th. We have not yet confirmed the debate subject for the 26th, but tickets are still selling out pretty quick. August 2nd. Will be Michael Malice and Angry Cops debating police. They're both Trump guys. They're both smart. They're both absolutely hilarious. So this is going to be an absolutely wild and hilarious show. You don't want to miss it. And then, of course, we have August 9th. The debate subject matter, again, yet to be confirmed, but they are all available. This is in Washington, D.C., in the metro, not in some weird faraway land, at the D.C. Comedy Loft. So go to dccomedyloft.com. And click the events, check it out, and we're looking forward to hearing from you guys. With that being said, smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Amber Duke.
Hi, y'all. I'm Amber Duke. I'm the senior editor for The Daily Caller, co-host of The Hills Rising, as well as Reasons Free Media, and author of the Unfit to Print newsletter.
Right on. Elaad is hanging out.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Elaad Eliyahu, the White House correspondent here at Timcast. It's good to be here. How's it going, Phil?
Hello, Elaad. Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
We got the story from CNN. Senate passes Trump's agenda bill after marathon voting session. Check this out from the Washington Post, how every senator voted on the reconciliation bill. And as you can see, it was 50-50. J.D. Vance traveled down to cast the tie-breaking vote. WAPO says Senate narrowly passed the budget reconciliation bill on Tuesday, with J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. 3 Republicans, Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Susan Collins, voted against the bill. The measure passed after nearly 48 consecutive hours of reading, debating, and voting on the amendments. The bill includes trillions in tax cuts from President Trump's first term, implements new promises from his campaign, and will spend billions on immigration. I would appreciate it if they got a little specific and said it will spend billions on deporting illegal immigrants. So what comes next in the Senate reconciliation process? It's now going to go to the House. The bill will return to the House, where another majority vote for the full chamber is needed to approve the legislation with the Senate changes. If it passes, the final version will be sent to Trump to sign, and the bill will become law. So we'll see. The first thing is, obviously, we're not convinced it's going to make it through the House, but we can get to that in a second. I'm curious if you guys are excited about the bill. Are you happy for it?
I think it's generally good. As good as you can expect with as slim of a majority as Republicans have in both chambers. There's a lot to like on the immigration front. You mentioned that. $175 billion towards immigration enforcement and border security through 2029, which includes $29.85 billion for ICE to hire 8,500 new enforcement officers and expand deportation operations, along with $45 billion to increase ICE detention capacity with more adult and family residential center beds. Also $46.55 billion for border wall construction. Wow. I think the immigration aspect is the strongest part of this bill. The Medicaid for illegals thing is kind of tricky. You have Senator Eric Schmidt claiming that they're kicking off 1.4 illegal immigrants. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Basically how they structured it, because the complete removal was killed by the Senate parliamentarian under the Byrd rule. What it does is it reduces the federal matching rate for states that provide Medicaid to illegal immigrants from 90% to 80%, and then also lowers the amount of federal emergency Medicaid spending on emergency room visits for illegals. So it's not a full moratorium, and it doesn't kick in until October of 2026.
Interesting.
It's mediocre. I agree with you about the immigration stuff. I do think that making the tax cuts permanent are good. I think that people haven't given enough thought, or you don't hear people talking about it enough, how bad for the economy it would be if they didn't make the tax cut permanent. You hear the left complaining about, rich don't pay their fair share, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone knows that's bullshit. Everyone knows that the rich pay all the taxes, and that people like 50% of the population doesn't even contribute. The NFA stuff is obviously bad. It's cool that you don't have to pay $200 anymore for suppressors and for short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns. But the really onerous part of the NFA is still there. You still have to provide fingerprints. You still have to be on file with the ATF. You still have to notify the ATF to travel across state lines with an SBR and SBS. So those are bad. I don't know everything that's in it, obviously, but like I said, I think that the funding for the immigration stuff is the best thing about it. The tax cuts are very good. Then everything else, I'm still kind of wishy-washy on. Did
you guys hear that the Trump admin's already denaturalized at least one person, stripping their citizenship?
Love to hear it.
Yeah, it was a UK-born individual who came here and was distributing child sexual abuse materials.
Bye.
Yep. Citizenship gone. It was funny. I was talking to Carl Benjamin earlier, and he was like, we don't want him back. And I was like, well, he's yours. You got to take him. I don't blame him for not wanting him back. But
build your own CCOT.
Yeah, exactly. But so the immigration stuff, I think it's so overwhelmingly good. I really don't care all that much about the rest, to be honest. They already took they're already overregulating our firearm suppressors, and that, so sure, I could want more. But these things are already happening. So if really what this bill is, the next move we're going to make is get Trump his funding for controlling immigration, then I just say, okay. I saw a post from Mike Cernovich. He's completely correct. He said the debt is not our most immediate problem right now. The mass migration is our major concern, is our major problem. And the crazy thing is, too, on top of this, the obvious thing, if Democrats win, they're going to spend $10 trillion in the deficit.
Yeah.
It's going to be substantially worse. So, I with respect to Massey, Paul, and even Elon Musk saying this debt stuff is destroying us, it is. But we've got more pressing issues in the short term. if we can solve these short-term issues, we can pull out of the tailspin and start correcting these in the long term.
So this one big beautiful bill is the Trump agenda manifested into a bill. So if you trust what Trump has to say in this bill, and you believe that he had what was it when he won the election and he had a mandate when he won the election, then I think you should be supporting this bill. It came down to a 50-51 vote. The three holdouts was one, Susan Collins from Maine. She likes to vote as a centrist because it plays well to her audience over there. Then also Republican Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina, one of the guys who voted no, is more of a moderate. In his speech complaining about why he didn't vote for the bill, he was really upset about the Medicare cuts, and he said it would end up knocking something like 600,000 people in his state off Medicare as a result of these cuts. I think they put in some necessary work provisions, and that Medicare needs to have some changes made to it, some reforms made to it, if we want to see it as a long-term, program that the government is going to be able to maintain, that's going to be able to stay tenable. And then, of course, there is the Libertarian grandstanders who voted against the bill, and that is Senator Rand Paul. I think that we need to have a serious conversation about what the goals of these libertarians really are. They need to swallow their pride and vote for Trump's one big, beautiful bill. As you guys were saying, the debt is an issue in our country, but it is far from the number one issue. As far as it goes for me, I believe immigration tops that issue, by leaps and bounds. So that's very important. And then they had to give Lisa Murkowski a bunch of sweeteners to get her to vote yes from Alaska. So if Rand Paul wanted to be able to influence this bill and cut $100 billion from it, which they increased to give to Lisa Murkowski, maybe he should have voted to support Trump's bill.
Who do you hate more? Do you hate Democrats more or libertarians?
Well,
No, that's a tough question.
No, and I'll give you an honest
Libertarian
response.
Elaad?
It's hard to give you like a definitive answer there because as far as I'm concerned, the Libertarians are voting with the Democrats here. Massey is voting against the Trump agenda. Rand Paul is voting against the Trump agenda. These are loser grandstanders, according to Donald Trump.
Okay, well, let me actually half agree with a lot on this one. I actually think Massey's great. I think Rand Paul is great. Rand Paul said he would not kill the bill. If it came down to it and he had to vote for it, he would. He didn't because J.D. Vance broke the tie. So Rand Paul said this to me. I don't believe he would have let it tank. So I think he's publicly saying, I don't need to vote for it. I don't like it. I'm not going to. Massey's staunchly like, nah. I half jokingly asked him, what if they slipped in, repeal the entire NFA in there? And then he started laughing like, how are you going to not vote for it then?
He told me that he would vote for the bill if they split it into two bills, where one of them was Trump's priorities and the tax cuts, and the other bill was everything else. He said he might support that.
Wow. So here's the issue I take. I don't take issue largely with Massey and Rand Paul, but the general libertarian, I mean, y'all hear me argue with some of these libertarians. Their attitude, we had one just recently with Billy Binion, and with all due respect, it was nice. I appreciate the conversation. My takeaway view from the libertarians were Democrats have done illegal things for a long time. You cannot rectify or get accountability for those things because we don't want to go that far. So the bad things are currently happening. They already happened. They're going to happen again. But don't you dare do anything because that means you're going to add to the happenings.
That's the problem with libertarians is they're like, well, we shouldn't do this and we're so principled and et cetera, which is it's fine to be like, to have those opinions. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, power is a zero-sum game. If you do not exercise power when you have it, when your opponents have power, they will exercise it, and they're going to do things that you hate. So to say, well, it's better to be principled and not do things that violate my principles, that's important to me. Well, it's cool, but you shouldn't be in a position to be making decisions about how power is used because you're not going to use power. And the libertarians being 3% at the highest point they've ever been, at the highest point they've ever been, they were like 3%.
That's being
But they're not, like, they don't have any significant influence, so they shouldn't be like, oh no, we're gonna be principled and we're not gonna exercise power. While you have the opportunity to make things better, you need to make things better if you can.
I think they often look at the world as it should be and not as it is,
Yes.
i.e. they don't live in reality. But I will say that Kentucky's a very interesting state electorally. They are a longtime Democratic stronghold who kind of flipped to Trump in 2016, but still voted Democrat multiple times for the governorship. The last, I think, 3 governors were all Democrats in Kentucky. They're kind of maverick voters, and they like Thomas Massie. So even though this MAGA PAC and AIPAC are going after him hard, unless they find truly the perfect candidate, he's not going anywhere. AIPAC's been going after Thomas Massie since 2012.
I like Massey.
Kentucky's producing some crazy politicians between Senator McConnell, between Rand Paul, between Thomas Massie. I don't know if they're sending their best from Kentucky.
The important thing to understand about Mitch McConnell in Kentucky is that he was like the Murkowski for Kentucky, meaning he brought home the bacon, right? Like he was in Congress, in the Senate, always making sure that Kentucky got its share of federal dollars. And so they'll always love him for that, even if they kind of don't like him personally.
To follow up on,
If every member of Congress was Thomas Massie, the Trump agenda would be complete. It would be a finger snapped and we're good to go. It is all of these politicians that demand special deals. You've got Susan Collins right here, and her opposition says, "I'm pleased the bill contains a special fund that I propose to provide some assistance to our rural hospitals, but it's not sufficient to offset the other changes in the Medicaid system." Let me just simplify what she's saying. My state deserves special sweetheart provisions if I'm going to agree to what you want. If every politician just said we shouldn't be spending this money, we should focus on the agenda to make America better, then let's roll. Fine, we'd be good.
but then they'd lose to the politicians who would say that I will get our state better deals.
Yes, my point is quite literally, if politicians had integrity and actually were standing on principle, like Thomas Massie does and Rand Paul, Trump would get everything he wants without issue. The problems would all be solved. The problem is most politicians are going to pander, lie, cheat, and steal. They're to some degree going to be commies. Zoran Mamdani is just, he's Susan Collins times 10. Susan Collins is going to say, give my district special privileges, give me free stuff, and I'll vote for your bill. And then when they say no, she goes, fine, I won't vote for it. Zoran Mamdani is the same thing, but just dramatically amplified. So I'll put it this way: commie it's in increments, and most of these politicians are just a teeny little bit communist, and I'm saying that intentionally to insult them. I know they're not really communists. They're just like, okay, I'll vote for your bill. What are you going to do for my state? Mm-hmm. Okay, you've got oil refineries there. We'll give you special regulation. Oh, okay, now I'll vote yes.
Transactional.
Yep.
Speaking of extra pork in the bills, the Republicans, because they couldn't lose another vote, had to get Lisa Murkowski in from Alaska, who got a ton of extra pork in the bill. Rand Paul had this to say on it. He said the bill includes over $500 billion in new spending, and at the end, they get to get the vote of the Alaska senator, billions and billions more were added, said Rand Paul of Kentucky. It really kind of begs the question, though, why wouldn't he try to leverage his vote instead of Lisa's to try to help reduce this the extra pork in this bill by some $500 billion or whatnot?
Because it's easier to spend money than to cut money politically.
Sure. Well,
I'm not saying that's a good answer or it's the morally right answer. But
he would have been able to leverage, instead of getting the sweetheart deals for Alaska, she could have voted against it. Rand Paul could have supported it, and I guess
but he was still going to vote no.
I mean, I guess I don't understand why it doesn't leverage his vote more, but maybe I'm missing something.
Let's jump to this from Mediaite. Ish Show. Marjorie Taylor Greene trashes drama over Trump's big, beautiful bill, says she can't imagine it will pass the House. So big news that Trump's agenda has succeeded in the House only because of J.D. Vance's tiebreaker. Now we're hearing from Marjorie Taylor Greene, as well as the obvious components here. It's not going to make it to the House. So you were mentioning before the show, Chip Roy says no.
Yeah.
Thomas Massie's an obvious no. He's been saying no nonstop. So they're already at a tied vote. So what happens then?
Marjorie won't be the vote that kills the bill.
But there's probably...
She's too pro-Trump. She won't do it.
But all you need is one more defector, and it's not going to.
But who would that be?
So I'm reading.
Chip Roy and Massie are both the biggest budget hawks.
Ralph Northam from South Carolina told reporters he currently opposes advancing the bill out of Rules Committee after the Senate's changes. I don't know if they're going to massage him too. They could lose up to 3.
Yeah, I mean they'll massage, they'll give kickbacks, and there will
Ralph
probably
Norman.
Norman.
I was like,
Norman. And there will probably be amendments in the House version as well. I mean, just a couple other things in the Senate version that are kind of disturbing. The provision that prevents Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood only lasts for 1 year. And also the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime only lasts for 3 years.
Yep.
So the way that the OMB director, Russ Vogt, is able to say that the bill is deficit neutral is because the CBO scores over a period of 10 years. They did this exact same accounting trick with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is where they made the corporate tax cuts permanent and they made the middle class tax cuts temporary because they knew that would be politically easier to pass an extension on. But when they passed it the first time, making that part temporary made the 10-year scoring window look deficit neutral. So they're doing the same thing with this 3-year provision on no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, because if you scored the bill over those first 3 years, it would increase the deficit significantly. But because it's scored over 10, assuming those things expire, which they won't, Congress will obviously vote to extend them. It is, of course, a huge budget buster. So that's like the huge rub here that I think the Trump administration is not being super honest about. And they keep claiming that they are doing no tax on Social Security, which isn't true. It's only under certain conditions, which they're like, oh, well, it's 88% of seniors covered under Social Security. But what about people who take their Social Security before the age of 65? Like, what about a widow who has to take it because she's only getting her late husband's pension and she's only 62, right? Like, they're not getting tax relief under this.
I honestly think at the end of the day, the reason why Trump is so adamant about the bill is because if the tax cuts don't stay, that's going to have a negative effect on the economy. And I think he knows that the worst thing for his entire presidency is a bad economy. That's why he's going so ham at the Powell and giving him such a hard time about not cutting interest rates. So I don't know that this is actually really all that much deeper than that.
I think a lot of posturing has to be done, but if you vote against the big, beautiful bill, you're probably going to have to retire or be primaried by a candidate that Trump is backing.
Well, hold on. Well, what happens if they only get 218 votes? They need a majority. Is 218 enough to pass it?
As I understand, they could lose 3 votes and still pass it.
No, that would put them at 217.
Let me look up the...
So I think at 218, they still pass it. If they lose 3 votes, it fails.
I think that's right. I think they can only afford to lose 2.
Yep.
I think the people that are most likely to encounter primaries are the people that didn't want to help push through the NFA stuff. The gun lobby, while it's not very big, it's extremely active. Like
and well funded.
Yeah, well funded. And people that are like pro 2A people, they really, really get out and vote. They're one of the most reliable voting blocks. And there's a lot of people that are talking on the internet now. They're like, "Oh, I'm not going to go. We hope for primaries. I won't be there in the midterms, etc." This is a big deal to a very small group of people, but that small group of people can really make a difference because they are so committed and they always vote.
This is true.
So I don't see
the big beautiful bill's going to pass.
No. We'll see.
I think it'll ultimately pass. It obviously won't be by the July 4th deadline. It'll probably be mid to early August before the recess. And they'll threaten to hold them over recess. They'll say, well, if you don't get this passed, you're going to have to stay. And I mean, ultimately, they probably wouldn't make them stay over recess because then everyone hates Mike Johnson. But I think that's probably the timeline that we're looking at.
Thomas Massey made a great point. He said that Mike Johnson's brought, like 100 and something Democrat bills to the floor, while dilly-dallying on the Trump agenda and what the Republican voter base wants, what the Trump base wants. So why is everybody mad at him? They should be mad at Speaker Johnson. Johnson's doing a miserable job.
I don't know.
Because the deep state.
I hate to say it, but Kevin McCarthy warned us.
Yeah, but he was doing the same thing.
I know. It's like the pot calling the kettle black, but in this one instance, he was correct.
It's true, but that's because of how tight the margins are.
Right.
You know, it's like if you had 300 Republicans, you'd just be like, whatever, we're going to do whatever we want.
And you can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. That's like rule number 1 in politics.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I really think that we shouldn't have to be, the Trump agenda shouldn't hinge on these couple of House members, specifically Thomas Massey, thinking that, blocking the agenda from passing. So I wanted to actually regurgitate this Truth Social from Donald Trump talking about Thomas Massey, because I do think we need to be clear-eyed about these libertarians. He says Thomas Massey of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. He's a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. He's he's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon, while at the same time yelling death to America. So I think, again, these Republicans need to fall in line, and ultimately I think they will, and the Trump agenda will pass. And I think this will be very good for the Trump country that this one big beautiful bill does get passed. I think we also it's worth mentioning how we got here and why Trump needed to pass it as one big beautiful bill. It's because the House votes were so slim, because the majority in the House is so slim. They wouldn't be able to pass bills individually.
I get it, and I want the bill to pass, but I think Mike Johnson's the problem, not Thomas Massie. I think the problem is weak-willed, spineless Republicans and evil, smarmy Democrats, not Thomas Massie.
Well, it's true, because why are we having to do Doge cuts through the rescission process, which doesn't even affect future spending? That's pulling back money that's already been appropriated by Congress.
Because Congress is broken?
Yeah.
I don't see how...
And why aren't they codifying all of these executive orders that Trump signed?
Because Mike Johnson.
Right. Like, Mike Johnson should be bringing one to the floor every single effing day.
I'm just going to go ahead and assume that when you go to Congress, Mike Johnson is standing at the table banging the gavel, and behind him is a gigantic lizard monster with an alien laser weapon pointed at his back or something.
I have no idea why nothing ever gets done, but it's just, standard operating procedure.
I think Speaker Johnson has
we are
a good job
chickens in a chicken coop.
Conditions that he's put in. I think he has a 2-seat majority. How much wiggle room does he really have? He's put in a tough position trying to pass the agenda.
It's all fake. It's all fake. The Senate parliamentarian being like, "Oopsie, I guess you can't have the bills you want."
Gosh, John Thune should have fired her.
But it's fake. It's fake. The fact that things like this exist. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are all no different than chickens in a coop, walking around, pecking the ground, going about our daily business, thinking we have lives and rights, and they have set up the system in such a way that even when you win the election, a parliamentarian goes, whoopsie, and starts stripping out the things from the bill that you actually want.
It's the deep state, just Senate version.
Right, exactly. On purpose. They said, let's create
They're also recommendations.
backups.
They don't have to listen to her.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the part that's so frustrating is they can overrule her, they can just ignore her, and they chose not to. That's exactly why the 2A lobby is so upset, is because they know that this is probably the only chance that there's going to be, especially with the change in the actual tax. There's probably not going to be a chance to do anything about the NFA ever. You're probably not going to get anything in front of the Supreme Court and about this post the tax, and it's a once in 100 years chance, and they just said no, we're not going to do it.
Man, I really do think this is a one in a lifetime chance to pass this bill to help put forth the Trump agenda. I'm kind of thinking what a huge disaster it would be for this bill not to pass, and really the Trump agenda to not manifest.
It'll be a disaster for the economy. It'll be a disaster for the economy, and it'll be a bad thing for the immigration stuff, and for ICE, and for getting immigrants out of the country. But
Democrats would be elated if this didn't pass, huh?
Well, I mean,
yes, they would.
I
definitely
maybe, but
no question.
It's not. It wouldn't be good for the country, and so they would hang it on Trump and be like, "Oh, well, it's Trump's fault." But they're all going to vote against it.
They're going to attack him either way, but
it doesn't matter.
I think I have no concern that it's not going to pass. Massey told me last week, he used this analogy. He was like, "Look, Congress is 3/4 pregnant. They're going to have the baby. Like, it's this far in the process. They're going to get it done. Somebody's going to compromise on principle, or whatever you want to call it, and vote for this."
Maybe, but let's jump to the story from ingame.com. I actually think as much as this story isn't really well known right now, this could actually help put an end to the big beautiful bill. Gambling taxes could exceed your net winnings under sweeping federal bill. That is, at the very last minute, they added an amendment to the big beautiful bill that says for gamblers, you can only write off 90% of your expenses and losses. This means for professional gaming. This means for the entire gaming industry, which has been booming. They are now basically saying your industry is cooked. So let me break this down. Let's read this. And on the surface, let me say this. It may seem to a lot of people, they're going to be like, well, who cares about gambling? Who cares about taxes? I saw the response on Twitter from people. Let me give the simple version. if you are a professional poker player, right? I say this right now because the World Series of Poker is currently happening. It's one of the biggest gaming sporting events in the world. It gets bigger and bigger every year. The biggest was just 2 years ago. The top prize is like $18 million. If it costs you, your business, you're flying around, you're buying special training softwares, whatever it might be, and then you're paying 10 grand to enter a tournament. If it costs you $100,000 in expenses for the year, you can only write off 90. So then if you end up winning $100,000 of the year, a break-even year where you're like, man, that year sucked, you will actually end up owing on $10,000 in income you do not have. Now, that, of course, matters very, very much for the poker pros and the poker industry, but gaming itself might turn on this the very last minute. So again, on the surface, it may seem like a relatively minor issue, but understand this. The entirety of Vegas, Penn Entertainment, Caesars Entertainments, they're opening a Caesars in New York. They're opening, I think, a Bally's in Chicago. They are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on gaming. And for them to slip in a provision that takes away your ability to itemize expenses as to your wagering and gaming, I don't understand how the gaming industry, like Caesars, is going to just let this slide. I have to imagine every politician in Vegas right now, every politician in Nevada is on the phone with their members of Congress and other members of Congress saying, we are going to spend as much as it takes to get this bill killed in the House by tomorrow because this destroys the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the gaming industry, but to your point, like there has never been, I don't think in all of American history, there's never been more places where people can go and gamble. There's never been more people that actually are interested in gambling for recreation the way that they are. And it's because of the availability of casinos and stuff. So I think it will make a difference, but I'm not sure. But I think that it's one of those things where it'll be a small constituency that really cares. And then there's going to be just like with the 2A people, it'll be a small constituency that really, really, really cares about this. And I think that you're going to see some of that kind of stuff throughout the bill. Small groups of people that really, really, really care.
Well, let's check this out. Let's see. What is the total market size of the gun industry in the U.S.? Because I'm curious, what's bigger? The gun industry or the gaming industry? Right now, with things like DraftKings and
you can only count professionals, though, right? Who are writing off business expenses, not the whole gaming industry.
So it's going to be a much bigger than just the professionals because this means anybody who's doing sports betting. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's like, I like going out on the weekends and I'm including on my taxes that I sports bet, I've got fantasy league football, whatever it might be. I mean, you just say this, the entirety of fantasy league, you're now you're getting 10% cut.
Oh, I can't write off my flight when I go to play fantasy football with my boys. Like, sorry.
I mean,
that doesn't seem like a big deal to me.
You're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry.
I get it.
Being told they can,
but it's not a business.
It is.
Fantasy football is a business.
There are people who are. Yeah, absolutely. How much money do you think DraftKings is spending to maintain their app so that they can have all of these people playing fantasy league sports? I mean,
Fantasy Kings is a business, but people who do it recreationally for fun.
And if they're making $10,000 or $20,000 a year additional to their income, and they're saying that this is not a hobby, this is a source of income for my family. I have a league and we do sports betting or we do gaming, whatever it may be. This is Vegas. Like the idea that Vegas is going to sit back and say we're totally okay with this. My understanding is that this provision got added to the bill without debate and nobody knew it happened until the very last minute. That's why I'm saying I don't see a scenario where the gaming industry, as massive as it is, just sits back and says, we literally don't care. They jammed this in at the last minute. My point is, I guarantee you that whether you care about fantasy sports or not, and you think it's silly, the companies that are making $50 billion a year off this are shitting in their pants right now saying, holy fuck, they're going to shut us down.
I hope they are.
Amber, what are you doing here?
$8 billion for the ammunition alone. The total firearms and ammunition business in the U.S. generates $19.7 billion.
Yeah. And again, it's not that the 2A people or it's not that the 2A lobby is the biggest. It's that they're the most committed.
What do you think the size of the gaming industry in the United States is per year?
I don't know.
$172 billion.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So
I find that so sad.
I don't disagree. Now, tell me if you agree or disagree that a $172 billion industry is going to, I mean, this is bigger than the gun lobby.
Oh, I'm sure they will. They already pay tons of political lobbying dollars to try to get casinos and to deregulate sports betting in states. But I don't agree it's a good thing for those things to happen.
So right now, you have the World Series of Poker going on. It's like a 2-month-long event in Vegas. Hundreds of thousands, not millions of people show up for this, one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Texas Hold'em, social poker is not gambling. There's a lot of pros that'll say it is, but there's a dramatic difference between rolling dice and crossing your fingers and trying to figure out what your opponent is doing, reading what they may or may not be doing, knowing the math. There is a big difference. There's an element of chance to it. Right now is the worst possible time for them to try and put this tax in there because you basically said to literally every single person who just flew to Vegas over the last 2 months, we are going to destroy what you are doing right now. We are going to make it impossible.
Better win more money.
It's not even that. If you wager over the course of 1 year, $1 million, and that's because you're entering tournaments every week. And then at the end of the year, you make $1.05 million, meaning you netted $50,000. They are going to say you owe an additional $100,000 you are taxed on an additional $100,000, meaning the more you actually are engaged in your profession, not make money, the bigger your tax bill becomes.
Yep.
Absolutely. There are some pros that might have a total wager for the year of $2 million and end up making $100,000 by the end of the year from tournament winnings and losses. Then they're going to say on the $2 million, you are going to owe an additional $200,000 tax. You're going to have $200,000 taxable income. Mm-hmm. And you're going to say, I only made $100 this year. So they're going to say, you owe us double taxes from everybody else based on this bill.
Yeah, the margins aren't big enough where this is going to be something that even pros aren't going to feel. They're definitely going to feel it.
I'm unsure about the specific provisions about gambling taxes in the bill, but just to zoom out and looking at the gambling and gaming and sports betting industry as a whole, I actually think it's a scourge on our society. I think it's a moral ill. I don't think wealthy people gamble. I think poor people writ large are the ones gambling and they're losing overall. And I think, it's kind of ruining sports. It's ruining the enjoyment of watching sports. Also, I think there's something to say about if you're an advantage player on these apps, they actually they remove you from the app. You are not allowed to be an advantage player with an amount of winnings on any of these sports gambling apps. So I know way too many young men who this disproportionately affects, who've lost tens of thousands of dollars, who aren't very rich or well off. And I think this is another way that society kind of takes advantage of young men.
Which is worse, gambling or porn?
I think both are very, very bad, frankly.
Yeah.
I think you could, you could go
fire
broke
the same
very
dopamine
quickly.
receptors in the brain.
And I think
Which is worse?
the proliferation and ubiquity of
Porn.
these industries now is very dangerous. It's way too easy to
agree. The
gamble on
answer
your
is porn's
phone.
worse.
I completely agree with Elaad, though.
But you can't gamble away your house.
No, you can give
watching
all of your
porn
all your money to OnlyFans chicks.
But it's different and more
No,
difficult
okay.
too, I guess.
You can gamble away your house. It happens all the time.
Absolutely.
I think
People hit their credit cards
Yeah.
to the credit window casinos to take money on cash advance they can't pay back, put on a craps table and lose. I've talked about this over and over again. There's something like 12 casinos within 2 or 3 hours driving of us. So I think one of the reasons they may be doing this is intentionally to kill the gaming industry. There is a difference, however. Sport like social poker is not the same as blackjack and craps. And so professional players that are playing in tournaments where you're paying $10,000 up front to enter a tournament where the top prize is $20 million is not the same thing as going to a casino, sitting, at a blackjack table and then just flipping a coin every time hoping you win. There's a big difference. The issue is we don't have a good way to draw a line of when gambling starts and stops. Is Pokemon gambling?
No.
When a child spends $20 to enter a tournament where they shuffle up their cards and then randomly draw cards, hoping the cards they draw are better, that's not gambling.
If anything is up to random chance, is it gambling? I don't think so.
What percentage of random chance doesn't make something gambling is the issue. So for the issue here is that this is a blanket on the entirety of gaming, even though fantasy sports and social poker games probably would not fall into the same category as, they literally don't fall in the same category as casino gaming. I think we have a big problem, a massive problem with the general expansion of casinos. I actually think they slipped this in there to destroy the gaming industry quickly, sneakily.
Which is based in a good thing.
I know, I support that.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think let's compare this to how wealthy people gamble. The stock market, right? there
Real
are.
estate.
I mean, I'm speaking generally. Obviously, Tim's arguing that professional poker is not really gambling because there's some skill involved. Let's say the same thing for the stock market. It's all skill, right? It's all knowledge. Okay. All right. So there are limits on how much you can write off on losses on capital gains, right? So why aren't there limits on gambling losses?
I suppose I don't care about it in the sense that it's like if you're trying to play blackjack or craps or something, or counting cards or whatever. The issue is that it's going to, like, this is one of the biggest problems I have with how they regulate gambling is that, as the story I've told before, in West Virginia, it's actually illegal by law, codified in the state, to play any card game, any. But they've decided Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Art, and, Lorcana, that doesn't count. So there are stores all over the state where children gamble based on what the law states. The law says if you put up any money for a card game that involves chance, this is an illegal game of chance card game that is banned in the state. But they've decided, no, we're going to allow big corporations to do this. But if you're a guy with the boys and you want to set up a poker game, now it's illegal gambling. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get fined and all that. That's the big issue I mainly have with this is skill-based with an element of chance is being lumped in with degenerate casino gambling.
So if kids went to a Magic the Gathering tournament and there's a box, you win and you get a full box.
Mystery box.
Right? Or, no, a full box of cards, whatever the newest expansion is.
Yep.
That's like $100 or $150 or something like that. So they're getting a prize. Is that legal?
It is illegal in West Virginia, but they will not enforce against it.
Okay.
This is my problem with it. So I bought a collector's booster box of Final Fantasy Japanese Magic the Gathering cards. And, oh boy, I got a Serge foil Ishtola. $700 card.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice pull.
So the box was $700, and I got a $700 card. Now, that's collectibles. We get it. If you're a child and you say, I'm going to play Pokemon, and then they say it's $20 to enter. I played Pokemon when it first came out. I had like 10 first edition Charizards, all gone, all lost them all. They're worth like $250,000 each or whatever. You enter the tournament, and if they say you could win packs, it's random chance. You're gambling. Now, obviously, no one considers that gambling. They're like, what do you mean? It's a Pokemon game. It's $20 to enter the tournament, and you win booster packs with cards in it. Well, the cards are random. Some cards are worth more than others. People buy packs for. You can get like I think it's unlimited.
But
Magic the Gathering booster.
Are people buying packs with the expectation of trying to
money, yes.
immediately turn around?
Yeah, they're
100%.
I think that's why most people
Watch the YouTube channels.
Young people
Watch the YouTube channels where they're wearing latex gloves and they have millions of subscribers and they're shaking as they open a pack and go, and then they have a money counter showing how much money they've made from doing it. They're gambling.
Maybe I've been out of the game for too long, but when I was a child and I used to play with my Pokemon cards, there was no real like sick
put 'em in a
pull.
binder.
Yeah, I think we commercialized it in this kind of
Nah,
weird,
you're
crazy
joking,
way.
bro. You're
But I
wrong.
don't even think most of the people who would buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or maybe again the industry's developed into this, and that would be kind of sad. But I think that's manifestly different than like blackjack. People going in with the expectation of
This is my
trying
point.
to.
No, my point is we regulate only some things as gambling and other things as not. Meanwhile, like I'll say this, like the stock market it's silly to call it gambling. It's not gambling. Some people gamble by making dumb choices, but being stupid doesn't mean you're gambling.
Calculated risk.
Well, I'll put it this way: if I decide to buy a DeLorean, am I gambling? I got a feeling people are going to want this. There's no more left, and I'm going to get one. It's just like Back to the Future. I don't know. If
Buying any asset gambling? I
No,
mean,
it's not.
When you get to that abstract level,
That's the point. Like if you're going to go and say you're like, I'm just going to continuously buy $100 worth of General Electric every week because I know that GE's a solid company. That's not gambling. Like the company's
Exactly.
been around for however,
And
whatever years.
additionally, calling stock market gambling would be like saying, I am going to invest in a farm that grows apples because I think people want apples. Oh, gambling there, huh? No, I'm investing in apples. Okay, well, look, if you randomly walk up to a guy who says he's got an asparagus ice cream company, do you want to invest in it? And you're like, sounds good. I wouldn't call that gambling either. I'd call you a moron. But to be fair,
You can gamble in the stock market, but
there is that company that makes those weird flavors. Have you seen those? They got like mustard flavored ice cream. I'm not kidding.
I've seen that, and also the weird flavored jelly
Onion?
beans.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Gross. Anyways.
My point is simply, I have concerns about how this will affect the poker industry, as it is. A lot of poker pros do call it gambling. I think that's silly when you're playing in a tournament. You're not wagering money. You've bought in and you have chips, and your goal is to outwit people. But that being said, this is going to, I think the risk here is they just basically challenged the entirety of the gaming industry to say, we are going to destroy a significant portion of your base. They've just opened up every gaming company to say, we're going to lobby as hard as we can to make sure this bill fails. And it takes only one congressman from Nevada, or, I mean, the highest grossing single casino outside of Vegas and Atlantic City is Maryland. It's Oxon Hill. It's National Harbor. There's casinos literally everywhere. One member of Congress being like, my district brings in too much money. Let me tell you guys, Charlestown races in West Virginia, before they opened the Horseshoe Casino, Maryland Live, and National Harbor, was the biggest casino on the East Coast. And West Virginia was raking in billions of dollars. They had one of the biggest poker rooms in the country. They had something like 50 poker tables. And then when Maryland opened 3 casinos on the East Coast, people stopped driving to West Virginia to gamble. But it was because West Virginia was the only game in town. My point is, I have actually had these politicians, members of Congress, come to me and say, we are desperate to get that revenue back. We lost billions of dollars. So what do you think is going to happen when you've got Maryland now that owns that real estate, that equity, and they're going to say, if this bill passes, you will lose all of that revenue. We're talking like, I don't know, was it $500 million in revenue for National Harbor last year? They're going to say, do we want to lose $500 million? What are you going to give us?
Well, all the Democrats in Maryland are going to vote against it anyway. The only Republican from Maryland's Andy Harris.
Correct. So I think there's potentially some Republican jurisdictions where they might not immediately come out and say this is the reason. But again, the gaming industry is going to dump as much as they can into fighting this.
There's a lot of perverse incentive when it comes to industries that some people view as good or bad. I think one of the interesting ways that a comparison that we could make here is like the marijuana industry in some states, people are against it, but it brings in tons of revenue for these states that otherwise do not get it. And then if you think about walking back all that legalization, the state revenue is completely lost. So, and now people are arguing for the pro-legalization side as just a way to get tax revenue, which I would argue is a wrong reason to argue for this stuff. But
let's jump to this next story, though. The Post-Millennial reports big, beautiful bill includes removal of illegal immigrants from Medicaid. Everybody thought that wasn't the case, but we have this from Senator Eric Schmidt, who says the big, beautiful bill kicks 1.4 million illegal immigrants off Medicaid.
Good.
For too long, Americans have been paying for the welfare of people who shouldn't be in our country. Today, the Senate voted to end that. Yesterday, there were a lot of rumors floating around about the ban on Medicaid for illegal aliens being stripped from the bill. Thankfully, that's not true. It's very much in the bill we just passed. You can look it up, page 602. Here's where the rumor came from. During yesterday's vote-a-rama, an amendment banning Medicaid for illegal immigrants was voted down. The clip of that vote started circulating online, and folks took that to mean the provision had been stripped from the bill altogether. But that was just one of many messaging amendments designed to force Democrats to vote against specific provisions. In this case, a ban on some Medicaid funding for illegal aliens who commit heinous crimes on the record. It was meant to show the public how radical they are. The ban itself was already in the bill. It was never taken out. So, Amber, you were mentioning something about this like not being true, or what is it?
Well, it's kind of a subterfuge. I read the provision he's talking about, and what it does is it caps the amount that states can be reimbursed when they have illegal aliens on the Medicaid payroll. And it also caps the amount that federal Medicaid dollars go towards paying for emergency room visits from illegal aliens. So it's not a full ban. It just slightly reduces the amount that states get back from the federal government when they have, which I think it's like 20 states that allow illegal aliens to get coverage. Usually through the CHIPS program.
What is the CHIPS program?
It's like the childhood nutrition stuff.
Ah, it's a big trick.
Yeah.
I say let's just get rid of all entitlements.
And emergency room coverage on the state level too.
All entitlements gone.
Yeah.
All of them.
Great.
you'd probably lose the next election.
Yeah, communism is favored for that reason. The country, I think there's a tendency of countries to drift towards communism because who's the guy with that famous saying that something like the United States will last until politicians realize they can offer up tax?
One of the founders. Yeah, when you can offer, you can vote themselves
money from the tax coffers,
whatever. Yeah,
when they can vote to pay something like that. So where we are currently at, if you went back to the founding of this nation and said we would have a Social Security system, they would laugh and be like, what? What do you mean? Yeah. We're going to take just roughly half of all of the money of everybody in the country who works and then distribute it amongst, everybody else. They'd be like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And now we're here saying, but we have to have it. We have to have it.
Well, yeah, because people rely on it. They've set their retirements, as they've made that their retirement plan, which is a terrible idea because it was only supposed to be like when they started Social Security, it was like 65 was the life expectancy for the average man, and it was basically to prevent women from ending up destitute when their husband passed away. And now it's just like, anyone that can come up with some kind of injury and get onto Social Security, it doesn't matter how old they are. People that are overweight get onto Social Security. There are people that will they're like, oh, I'm too big to work, or I have my pain and blah blah blah, I can't work, and they'll get onto Social Security. All of those
the
people,
SSDI program has a lot of problems because if you have a disability where you could work part-time, for example, you have to be very careful about how much money you make, because if you make over a certain income, you get kicked off. So they just all don't work at all.
Yeah, which is disgusting.
Once you give people different rights or start different entitlement programs, it becomes extremely politically unpalatable to strip away any of this stuff back without people getting extremely pissed. Obviously, this stuff's true for a lot of different entitlement programs, but obviously, once you're giving out stuff for so long, and now the government rolls that back, people are going to get pissed. I think that was a big thing during Prohibition too. People were like, "We've been drinking for so long, now you're going to roll this stuff back." I think that's also become the case now with abortion. Women have had access to abortion in most of our country for so long. Now, when you mention, which the Trump administration wisely hasn't mentioned at all throughout this entire administration, very interestingly, that we completely overlooked, by the way. But, now it's going to be impossible to roll that back because women have had access to abortion for so long. It would make it a lot more difficult too.
Well, wait a minute. You realize that Trump is like, no, this is a states' rights issue now, and that was the intent of the administration.
Yeah, I think it was.
Why would he mention it?
It was politically savvy for them to lay off the issue that's been dragging down Republicans for so long. I also think they actually encouraged. There was a case in Texas about the abortion pill that they encouraged judges to dismiss because maybe you know more specifically about it, but I think it was how there's issues with mifepristone, I believe, the abortion pill that is more threatening to women's health than previously led to believe. But then the Trump administration encouraged judges to dismiss this case and not push it forward. They're not trying to make the abortion issue an issue at all. My larger point here, though, is that when women have, or anybody has access to abortion or rights or different entitlement programs for so long, it becomes unpopular to strip those back or take those rights away.
Yeah, I mean, that's fairly...
I think the way to do it for Social Security, like the only way that would be politically feasible, is you have to reimburse everyone exactly the amount that they've paid in. And then for people who are close to or at retirement age, perhaps open up an account privately for them.
Like a sunsetting
of it. It's complicated. One thing we could do is we could install lights in people's hands that when you're about to turn 30, they blink red. And then when you turn 30, it blinks red.
We need caps and reforms.
Just allow people an option.
Serge knows what I'm talking about.
Let people
Well, they should do it like an HSA.
opt out. Look, if we'd have pegged the Social Security fund or the money that the Social Security fund, the money that's supposed to go to Social Security, if you'd have pegged it to the stock market or made an investment account with that same money, you wouldn't have any problem with the.
Well, yeah, you only get like 75 cents back on the dollar because of inflation for Social Security.
It needs to be restructured, or else it's going to destroy the dollar.
Yeah, what I think is total BS is the cap on Roth IRAs of they upped it to $7,000, I think, last year. There's an income limit and there's a contribution limit.
So interesting you mentioned that because I was very curious about this myself. I actually read into it, and the reason why the Roth limit was so low is because it was purposefully planned for low to middle income people, and they didn't want it to be abused by people who did make.
How is it abused?
Because if you have enough money to invest something like $20,000 some odd dollar, invest $20,000 or plus some odd dollars and still reap those tax benefits, like there are other ways.
You're still paying the tax. You're just paying it up front.
That's what Senator Roth, when he tried to make, when he made the Roth IRA thing a thing, was the reason, his reasoning behind it.
So you're disincentivizing people from using this really awesome retirement account And it's not because of didn't want rich people to abuse it. It's because they wanted people wedded to Social Security.
Well, when
Just
I
get rid of
read
it all of it. You name it. No more roads. Nothing.
You sound like Thomas Massey.
Libertarians.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree with libertarians.
That's why they only
being
get a
like
point
cut
or two
everything.
in any general election.
Yeah, the best they ever did, I looked it up, was 3.3 with Gary Johnson.
You don't.
Oh, wow. Dave Smith didn't do better than him?
They don't.
Dave Smith didn't
Damn,
run.
I'm shocked. Wow. Oh, okay. I wonder why he didn't.
Nobody's a libertarian is big because everybody wants to tell other people what to do with their lives.
Okay, hold on. Elaad, you do know what the Libertarian Party is, right?
I don't think the Libertarian
No,
Party
yes.
knows what the
It is
Libertarian Party is.
It is an amalgam of degenerates who want their degenerate things to be legal, so they band together and basically say, I'll make my degenerate thing illegal, and then you can have your degenerate thing be illegal. Deal? That's what the Libertarian Party is. Have you been to one of their conventions?
I have.
And it's half that and half Ron Paul fans.
So the thing is, I think younger right-wingers have some affinity towards some of the ideals of libertarianism, but when I turned hard against the way it manifests in the Libertarian Party is when they had a rally with literal communist and socialist groups, and that made me realize this against the imperial war machine
There are
rally.
people. There are people that call
Angela
themselves
McCurdle and
There are
others.
people. Angela McCardle is not a socialist, but there
She-
are people. There are.
she
there-
rallied
hold on,
with
hold on. There-
communists.
Hold on. There are people
Proudly.
Hold on. There are people in the Libertarian Party that would call themselves libertarian socialists. People like Vosh considers himself a libertarian socialist, and
I'm
they're
not talking about
leftists.
those people. I'm talking
libertarian
about,
socialists.
No, I'm talking about at this rally that the Libertarian Party in our country teamed up with different literal socialist and communist groups because they had common.
Oh, the
ends.
anti-war part.
Yeah, so I think that is disgusting, and like I couldn't do any more like apologencia for the party. They should completely be abolished, and like all the influencers within.
they should be abolished.
Yeah, we should totally abolish the Libertarian Party because they're a Trojan horse for the far left, and they're literal apologists
you just
for
abolish
communists
the
and
far left?
socialists. Well, they're willing to work with them.
Well, no, but
What do you have to say about
why
that?
abolish the Libertarian Party?
Because
if you're going to abolish parties, why don't you just abolish the far left?
Yeah, and their allies, the far left and their allies, which are the Libertarians.
I mean, if we're going to do that,
Clearly.
and we
Jackboots.
if we're just pie in the sky, whatever we want, can we get a big boat, put all the leftists on it, and then send them off to Venezuela
That would be far more effective than going after the Libertarian Party, just going after leftists.
or Cuba?
Cuba.
Putting him
They're
on a boat would
socialist
be
paradise?
nicer than putting him on a plane.
A helicopter?
Well, I mean,
Whoa!
well, I got to tell you, I went on a helicopter tour of Atlantic City. They're scary.
Libertarians?
Well, libertarians are scary for different reasons, but no, I did a helicopter tour of Atlantic City.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was
Those
one of
things
the
crash all
Helicopters
the
are
time.
yeah, it was
scary.
terrifying.
I've been in a couple helicopters. They're scary.
I mean, I've been in a good helicopter once where it's like there's actual seats and everything. Now, this one in Atlantic City was like literally sitting in I felt like I was sitting on like a millimeter of sheet metal.
The,
I straight up, and I was like, I'm ready to land.
a buddy of mine owns one of those helicopters they call the Little Birds that the Special Forces guys will be sitting on the side and hauling around. I've been on one of those, and that thing is pretty crazy.
I was advocating for sending leftists to a socialist paradise. I think that is a gift, and we should tax all right wingers at 50% until we pay to be able to give leftists their socialist utopia by sending them to Cuba.
I don't mind sending them to Cuba.
And I believe no conservative should argue against it. Everyone on the right should agree with me that we will tax every penny we have to from you. It is a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Okay, but we have to send the neocons too, because if not, they're going to be calling for regime change
Elaad.
and socialist utopia. They're going to be
Now you're
Boeing
gonna-
and Lockheed Martin are going to get all the contracts to orchestrate the coup, and then we're going to be involved in nation building.
Don't talk about our president. that way.
Amber's after Elaad now. She's like, gotta send the neocons.
I didn't know he was a neocon. The more,
No,
the
I
more you
believe
know.
in peace through strength like the president does, and I don't,
All right. Let's jump to this from The
at that
Independent.
mustache.
Trump says he will take a look at deporting Musk as feud reaches new height. The world's richest person has been criticizing Trump's signature legislation as costing far too much. So a reporter asked Trump, will you deport Elon? He says, we'll take a look at it. Maybe we got to send Doge. Now, Trump has been saying this over and over again that Elon is upset because the EV mandate's going away, despite the fact that Elon's been saying for like 5 years he hates the EV mandate. I agree with Elon Musk. In 2022, he said if the EV mandate was gone, our market position would significantly improve. And he's like, I will say that again. And he's right. I looked at electric cars. I looked at all the other companies. I will leave them unnamed. They are garbage compared to Teslas. And so that's why I ended up buying a Tesla. Elon's position is that because of the EV mandates, it allows these failing companies to be competitive. But if you were to get rid of that, Tesla would be the only game in town. So he wants to get rid of it. Trump is acting like he doesn't want to get rid of it and entertaining possibly deporting him because Elon says the big beautiful bill is the death knell for this country.
So I think that Elon's chief concern, of course, is the deficit. But I will say multiple sources in Congress told me that Elon called them directly and told them not to get rid of the EV subsidies.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I think maybe he was saying something different publicly than he was doing behind closed doors. But this response from Trump is classic Trump, right? Like if a reporter asks him a question about something and he hasn't really thought of it before, he always says, we'll take a look. We're going to look at it. So it's like the standard bearer answer.
Amber, very respectfully, I don't think Musk's chief concern is the deficit. I think Musk's chief concern is his bottom line, and I think that's always been the case. I think he was also never really MAGA. I think he was always just trying to appropriate the MAGA movement for his ends, and I thought that was always very, very clear. I think he has a ton of business interests that relate to the government.
What are his ends?
Why bother with Doge then?
It was just a way to him to flex influence and cut different programs that he was or wasn't a fan of, and to exercise power within the government. But
What do you believe his ends are?
I think he has a lot of. I know he has a lot of government contracts, and actually, I think Steve Bannon.
What are his ends?
His business interests. He's trying to advance his business
Okay, but
interests
he could
within
have
the
spent
government.
$100 million on Trump's reelection campaign, and that would have been enough for him to keep his government contracts. Instead, he risked it all by doing Doge.
I think the
pissing off
Doge
Trump.
stuff was a goodie for him. I think he enjoyed spending time in the White House and being and orbiting around Trump and overstaying his welcome. And I think I agree with Steve Bannon when Bannon describes him as a fake MAGA and an oligarch trying to exert
I agree
influence.
he's not MAGA, but that doesn't mean he doesn't care about the deficit.
So I have a question.
I don't think that's his chief concern. I think he uses that to posture, just like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul do.
So my question is, if you had to choose,
just posturing.
if you had to choose one to deport either Elon or Elaad, who would you choose? Let the record show that Amber has pointed at Elaad.
Well, I don't think it matters who Amber thinks. I think it matters who
he's
President
mad now.
Trump thinks.
He's big mad.
I think it matters who President Trump thinks.
It's
so
all Trump.
How about
It's
you ask
all about
President
Trump.
who he'd rather deport?
Trump's going to be like, who?
Exactly. Well, I think he's going to say Elon because.
I honestly think the only reason he said we'll take a look is because he doesn't know what they're talking about.
That's just his response to everything is we'll take a look at it. He said that
and
for a bunch of
all the
things.
time.
But it's the right response because let's say there's like Elon kicks a dog or something and then screams, I hate America. Trump doesn't know this. He hasn't seen the news. He doesn't know what's going on. The question he's getting asked is going to be referenced to something that he has not looked into.
He never rules anything out. Anytime a reporter says, will you rule out running for a third term? I don't know. We'll have to take a look. Like that is what he says.
Just if I could trash Elon a little bit, I actually think he's not only fake MAGA, he's antithetical to MAGA because he supports mass H-1B visas continuing to
Look,
flood
that's
into
true.
our
I
country.
agree with that. I don't think he's MAGA.
Completely not. And he tries to appropriate the facade of MAGA. So while Trump's trying to get rid of mass migration from happening in our country, I think Elon Musk and his business interests want to flood our country with more migrants. I think this stuff was inevitable.
What do you think about the gold card? Or the gold visa? What is it called? The gold card?
It was a good
American,
idea,
but
but I don't think he was very serious about it. Or he's going.
They're doing it. People have bought it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, if you're willing, I think we should have more rich people in our country.
Yes.
They contribute a disproportionate amount to their tax revenue, and we're
I think we should just get rid of all taxes on people who make more than $100,000 a year and only tax people who make under $100,000 at 100%.
I kind of think the reverse.
We call it the Bloomberg model. But in all seriousness, that was Bloomberg's actual proposal, not like literally taxing everybody, but Bloomberg's campaign proposal was tax the poor. Did you know that?
It was very regressive, yeah.
He said that poor people make bad decisions,
and that's why
so we should tax them and take away their money so that we can decide for them what they should have.
There was a study there was an article that I was reading that was a study that said the same thing, that a big part of the reason why people are poor is because they make bad decisions. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, life's hard and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, fair enough. People can run into hard times and stuff. But if you consistently make bad decisions, you're going to end up in bad places with bad circumstances in your life. Well, they are among them.
It should be, you have to pay more taxes if you're a communist. So when you're filing your IRS form, like the first thing it should ask you is like name, date, address. Are you a communist? Yes or no? If yes, instantly increases your tax rate up to 50%.
Alligator Alcatraz and then deport all communists.
All communists.
Alligator Alcatraz and then off to Cuba. Bounce them from Florida right over to the.
I would actually support funding a commune. As long as I get to be the party, the chairman.
I mean,
Let's get all the leftists.
You're going to need to
I'll
offer them a
in.
lot of goodies so they
They can't
reelect you.
leave. Elect? Are you joking?
no,
There will be 100 leftists will come to my commune and I'll get 3,000 votes every time. And there'll be big walls to keep them in for their safety.
yes,
That's communism.
that was East Germany too. You know,
Yeah, idea's so good. You got to force people at gunpoint. Mm-hmm. Indeed. Anyway, I think Elon is correct about the deficit, but I don't know why he's so adamant about it right now, as if he just discovered we have a massive deficit. To be fair, we were talking about this. I can't remember if we're talking about this on Culture War or not, but when the debt to GDP ratio hits like 120 something, is like historically we see nations collapse and we're there. So that could be the concern.
that's true. But I also saw something. I'm looking right now, but I saw something today.
Yeah, we're at
that
123.
Japan's debt to GDP ratio is something like 200% or something like that, and they don't seem to be on the way out. Japan, yeah, they're
I disagree. Isn't their birth rate like 0.4?
Japan's debt to GDP ratio is 236.70% of the country's gross domestic
All
product.
right. So I looked it up. Between 90 and 120%, you have stagnation and inflation. Between 130 and 150, you have political instability, capital flight, and austerity. And then if it exceeds 200, it's typically where you see total collapse, like Zimbabwe and Venezuela. Interesting.
It's bad to be in this much debt, especially when you're the reserve currency of the world. Like, I mean, it does give us more leeway to borrow, but you know, the rest of the world has to feel like we're a safe place to invest.
Japan's debt to GDP ratio is 260%.
Within
Crazy.
Japan.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's it says right there. It's within Japan. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Not like that outside of the country.
Right,
which is
right,
why
right.
It's like that. Why it's why it's
Right.
260. Yeah.
That's crazy. Oof. Well, the end is nigh. It was nice knowing you guys.
Drag.
Don't forget.
Hopefully, you've got.
I think
something
we did
pretty
talk
jacked.
about Civil War last time I was here.
That tends to come up,
Yeah.
especially in
We don't have to do it today.
with the context of the way that politics is in the U.S. today. You know, it's not a surprise.
Budget showdown 2029 U.S. debt clock. Debt to GDP will be 140%. Wow.
It's nuts.
Yeah, I feel like the immediate threat we face is the mass migration problem.
Yeah.
And Democrats pumping the census so they can steal the election.
Well, this is an important point because obviously all of these CBO projections about the bill don't take into account how much public assistance is being spent on illegal immigrants.
Right. Yeah, that's I was talking to someone today about the deficit because they were concerned about the bill, and I said the argument from the right that oppose the bill is that it's adding to the deficit, but the argument from the pro-Trump faction is that when you deport all these illegal immigrants, it's going to dramatically reduce spending. There's a lot of fraud, and then it should balance itself
You'll
out.
also have a higher housing supply. Wages will go up, which means more tax revenue collected by the government, possibly more inflation too. But
I mean, the demand for jobs will be skyrocketing. So you're going to be able to negotiate for higher salaries and wages.
I think they also argued that it's reducing the amount that the deficit would increase was one of the taglines for the bill.
yeah, the Tea
like-
Party said that too.
They were like, yeah, it's increasing the deficit, but by less
Slower.
than we were expecting to, and they're calling that reducing the
That's
deficit.
what Joe Biden said when the inflationary rate went down to 5% instead of 9%.
Yeah, it's
He was like,
Right,
prices
right.
are rising slower.
I do think that whatever we get from Trump is still better than what we've gotten for Democrats. So
For sure.
What is there to complain about in the end, I guess?
Yeah.
I mean,
We're not getting a rainbow and Skittles and candy canes. What's going on?
It's the art of the possible.
I mean, if it was Kamala Harris, we'd still have all of the problems at the border. We'd still have all of the people that are illegal immigrants here in the country. I mean,
We'd still be paying for trans kids.
there'd be more of it.
Yeah.
There'd be more children.
National
being
mandate.
mutilated. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, let's jump to the story from the Daily Mail. Trans swimmer Leah Thomas's wins will be wiped, and runners up move to first place after Penn bowed to Trump crackdown. The DOE announced Tuesday that Penn is adopting strict definitions for male and female competitors under White House guidelines, and that the school will ban trans athletes from women's competitions and erase Thomas from the school's record books. And only in a strange moment in time. But in the future, when children are reading and learning about history, they're going to say there was this brief moment in the early 2000s where they had men playing on women's sports teams for some reason.
He saved this for MAGA month.
Yeah, MAGA month indeed. MAGA month indeed.
Right after Pride.
What you guys had a person.
Yeah, our White House correspondent Reagan Reese was there. She got a couple of questions in with the Education Secretary Linda McMahon, who was like, "Yeah, look, this is a roadmap for basically every negotiation we're going to do with all of the colleges who let this happen, because the only reason UPenn is stripping the titles and apologizing to all the swimmers impacted is because the Trump administration paused $175 million in funding. So they basically did to UPenn the same thing that they did to Harvard, and UPenn really wants that money, so they felt that they had no choice.
Amazing. Okay, so now
one other funny thing, sorry to interrupt, but Linda McMahon also told our reporter that she talks to Trump privately about this issue, obviously, and he thinks it's deeply disturbing. Which he should.
I think we need to commend the Trump administration for willing to exercise and use power and twist the arms of these different schools and administrations to doing what is genuinely right. And that's a very important thing, because in the past, there are different administrations sometimes feel like threatening to cut funding or whatnot is like beyond the red line of what's acceptable for you to do to try to achieve, whatever ends or right whatever wrongs are happening in these schools. So I think it's a good thing that the President Trump administration is willing to use this power, and it's clearly bearing fruit and working very well. I think we should see other colleges start to capitulate on other rules they're breaking too.
Well, I mean, the administration should use every bit of power at its disposal to influence whether or not men are allowed in women's, sports, whether men are allowed in women's changing rooms in any school, in any college at all. If you're of the opinion that men can become women and women can become men, you shouldn't be in a position to make decisions about children or young people at all.
Yeah, the LGBT community has been catching a lot of L's recently. I know there's also been a couple of Supreme Court decisions that were recently released last week, one of them being that they ended up backing up the Tennessee state laws banning transgender surgeries for minors that I know many Democrats were in dismay over. There were also a few different things. So closing out Pride Month on a high note, so it seems.
Yeah, they allowed the Montgomery County, Maryland parents to opt their kids out of the LGBTQ storybook hour in the elementary school.
The idea that you wouldn't be allowed to opt out is insane.
It's a no-brainer.
Interesting tidbit of the Montgomery School District specifically, the groups that were most vocal about this were religious Muslim people.
Yeah.
These weren't like religious Christians or whatnot. I covered a couple of protests that they had there years ago. It was predominantly 80% plus Muslim people who were protesting over having the options to opt out from LGBTQ material in their schools.
Look,
not in their schools. They would be able to leave the classrooms while the books were being taught in the classrooms.
I'm not a Muslim, and I'm not particularly partial to the Islamic.
You're not Muslim?
I am not, and I'm not particularly partial to the Islamic faith. But they're right.
Or impartial to
you shouldn't have any issue a parent shouldn't have any issue saying, I don't want my kids learning that, especially when it comes to things that have to do with sexuality. Right? Like if a parent decides, I don't want my kids learning about sexuality beyond anatomy, then I don't want my kid. That should be a no-brainer.
I got a question though. How much do you guys think that the reason why they were allowing males was because the Democrats were threatening to pull funding?
I don't know.
Well, they certainly were,
By and large,
because Biden tried to rewrite Title IX to include gender identity as a protected category. And so these universities, to some extent, I think a lot of it is they're ideologically captured, but certainly they were worried that if that rule got codified, that they would lose funding under Title IX if they didn't do it. That was definitely part of it. But Biden ultimately wasn't allowed to do it, thank God. Also in the big, beautiful bill is increasing the endowment tax on universities.
Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Up to 1.4%, I believe.
Yeah. I think that needs to scale too. It needs to scale because most colleges and universities actually don't have a very impressive endowment, and all the Ivy Leagues generally do. And the top 5 have endowments bigger than 80% of the bottom ones combined, something like that.
That's true.
Some crazy 1%er issue over there in the endowments as well.
Leah Thomas was, Riley Gaines was the one that was swimming against her, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not anymore. They didn't.
They need to run that back.
No.
That guy has
for
been
fun.
disqualified.
Does he have to give Riley the trophy now? Because remember they told her that she didn't get to
Yep.
keep the trophy because they wanted to give it to him.
Wow.
Is he going to have to like DHL this to Riley Gaines' house?
That's so wild.
Send it on over.
Yeah,
Has to deliver it himself.
that'd be great. With a handwritten apology.
Okay, well, if Trump's agenda is not fulfilled and the Democrats cheat the census, this will be reversed the moment they win. If they win in 2028, they're going to open the borders, flood the country. Census will come in. Democrats will get 87 new congressional seats and electoral college votes, and no Republican will win an election ever again.
Can't imagine what it would be like for the Democrats to actually go back to the Biden policy when it comes to the border. Like, how are Americans going to react? Obviously, people will vote, and they'll vote for whatever their interests are, and they might not be thinking about the border. Maybe in 3 years when they're actually in the booth, it doesn't occur to them, or they're like, oh, they won't do that or whatever. But I'm very curious as to what the American people will do if it's like, oh, now there's another massive invasion of illegal immigrants.
I think the Republicans have a deep bench right now, especially compared to the Democrats. So whether it be J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Ron DeSantis, against likely AOC.
All of this is dependent on the economy.
Sure.
Well, you also have Senate and House to consider, which could provide a stopgap if there were a Democratic president. And the congressional map is looking better and better for Republicans because courts have struck down a lot of the Democratic gerrymandering. Plus, the DNC is currently in massive debt.
I mean, I want you to be right.
I
I want this to be true, and I want to see the Republicans win over the Democrats. But look, man, like I said, and I've been saying this for a while, and I will die on this hill. The economy is going to be the deciding factor. If the economy is good, the Republicans can win. If the economy is bad, the Republicans cannot win. And what we get will be worse than anything we've ever had.
Hold on. If the economy is good, it's not a guarantee the Republicans will win.
No, I'm saying they can win.
Well, can depending on what the issue becomes.
Sure.
So when the economy is bad, people will just choose whoever is not in power under the presumption it will make the economy better. But if the party in power makes the economy good, people are like, the way it should be. Mm-hmm. I'm mad about this social issue now. Mm-hmm. And so we don't know what that social issue might be.
I mean, also, like, immigration was the biggest issue in a lot of states in 2024, even though the economy was terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think they were tied together. There was that viral video of that black guy going in Boston, I think it was, to a community center, and they were like, nah, it's housing for illegal immigrants now. And he was yelling, like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. Like, our community center was just taken away. He's like, I come here and I can't have it. So that was in people's faces. In Chicago, they tried to build a camp on the south side, and it was in a black neighborhood, and the people there lost their minds, so they canceled the project. People were like, you are not putting this in our neighborhoods. So that really nuked them. But we'll see. We got a year. We got just about a year.
Yeah, for the midterms.
The campaign cycle is going to start in 6 months, and it's going to be full swing 1 year from now, and it is going to be nuts.
Yeah. You'll see a lot of Republicans are going to be regretting this vote. I think, to be honest with you, I do think there's going to be a lot of people.
I don't know about that. Why? What do you think? What do you think?
Because I think that the stuff from the 2A community they're going to be making a lot of stink.
Yeah, but it's a year from now. It's a political eternity.
I think they're stuck between a rock and a hard place because if they voted against the bill, then President Trump would definitely send a primary their way, somebody to primary it.
I think there might end up being a lot of people getting primaried, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but not explicitly with Trump's endorsement and support. If you
who's retiring?
Was Tom Tillis? It was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Apparently, Michael Watley is going to run.
Huh. I don't think they'll be able to find anybody who's going to beat Massey.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. I think he's trying to make an example out of Massey, though.
Yes.
Trying to,
he's got
so
but
if
he
any
leaves,
other
it's going
Republicans
to backfire. If he doesn't defeat Massey after pouring all of this money in and having La Savita and Fabrizio go in to combat him, then you're going to open up the floodgates for other Congress members to think that they can openly buck Trump too.
But does a congressman really want to go through all of the,
Massey? He'll fight to the frickin'
No, Thomas
death.
Massey, yes, and he's in a unique situation. But
Massey
I think
will
the average
invent a
Republican congressman.
chicken-powered mech suit.
Chicken.
The other thing to understand with Trump and endorsements, though, is that he really cares about his win record. So if he senses that his primary challenge is not going well, he will pull an endorsement and he'll endorse the person who's running ahead of. I mean, okay, recent example, Arizona, Karen Taylor Robson is running for governor. He gives her the endorsement. She's not performing that great compared to Andy Biggs. So a month later, he co-endorses Andy Biggs just to hedge his bets, right? And he was going to endorse Thomas Massey's primary challenger in the last election. The person was polling terribly. So a few weeks before Election Day, he called Thomas Massey and was like, "Hey, Thomas, do you think I can endorse you? It's going to be great." And he was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it."
The president loves a winner. What can you say?
Yeah.
He does.
And he told him on the
love a
phone.
winner?
He was like, "I'm
Well,
54-0, Thomas. I'm 54-0." I mean, he likes the idea of winning those endorsements. So
Thomas Massey's extremely popular in his district.
he is.
He's got great numbers, and I don't think that Trump is going to be able to get him out of there.
They'd have to find the perfect candidate, and so far their recruitment efforts are not going well.
Yeah, there was, I forget what the criticism of the guy that he's talking about is. Never mind, because I don't remember off the top of my head. But the guy that like you said, the guy that Trump is looking at, or that is looking to stage
It's like
primary.
a state senator, I think.
Yeah, he's not going to be that impressive to the people of Kentucky, if I understand correctly. So, but I mean, there's a lot of other people that I think that might be in a dangerous situation because of the votes on this stuff. So we'll see.
Let's jump to this story from the Daily Mail. Check us out. Love Island. How many of you are big fans of Love Island? None?
What's that?
I did not. I didn't think you would be. Love Island fans are horrified by Vanna's botched face. So here's the...
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, I got to refresh it. So here's her face.
Rough.
Guess the age.
I can't answer because I already know.
26.
23.
No.
21.
So that
That's brave.
picture there, that screenshot is from a hilarious scene where she's talking to one of the dudes on Love Island, and they're talking about how old they are, and he shares his age, whatever, and she tries to get him to guess her age, and of course he's like, "That's a freaking trap. I'm not doing that." And she eventually goes, "I'm 21," and his face looks shocked, but then he recovers and he goes, "Oh, I thought you were younger."
She is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry, man. Look, I know people are going to be like, "That's so mean." Okay, well, the young women are getting all this crazy plastic surgery, and it is nasty.
I think it's really unfortunate and sad because she likely has issues with, her body and how she views herself. I think this body dysmorphia is what I'm diagnosing her with. I don't know, not a doctor, but I think it's actually similar to the issues that so-called transgender people feel with their body dysmorphia and viewing themselves differently in the head and how they outwardly appear. So they just get an obnoxious amount of plastic surgery and looking like a crazy... She almost looks like a transgender when she gets that crazy amount of like bimbo type looking surgery. And some people think that's really hot. I know I have friends who think this is really, really hot.
There are times like some of these pictures she looks all right, but
Not this one.
She looks.
Her nose is overcooked. Her lips are about to burst, and her chest is fake.
And that's the heavily filtered version.
Yeah.
But the
that's a look
I
that
think-
people go after.
I think a lot of it is
Sure,
is
but I bet
Instagram.
it's not majority.
I think it's the Instagram face that everyone is trying to get from the plastic surgery because these girls make so much money with like brand deals and they get so many likes that they think that is
I bet
what
it's bots.
people find attractive.
I think there is a line you have to ride too, because there are a lot of people who do look good and we don't think
Come on,
they
Elaad.
do
You say your
have
boys are in, you got your boys are into that.
Dude, compared to some of the women out there, frankly, hey man, it's...
To be fair, guys could be into literally anything.
Look, to be honest with you, if the option is that or someone that's 150 pounds overweight, I might be like, all right, well, she looks all right.
It's just so crazy that young women, like teenage adult women, are getting plastic surgery and looking like weird 80-year-old women.
I just miss unique faces. Like you go back to the models of the 90s, like they were all hot, but they all looked different, right? Like they all had unique features. And now everybody looks the same. It's like this blow up doll, like over.
Everyone's kind of trying to look like
This
some kind
bimbo
of Kim,
look.
Kim
Is that an offensive
Kardashian.
word? Is bimbo
don't
a derogatory, a pejorative?
Not to me. I mean, probably. I don't.
Did you that look, that bimbo type look,
Yeah.
inflated a little bit in the lips, face, and the breasts in a weird way? And I think trans people go for a similar look. It's over plastic surgerized.
Yeah. Did you guys see the Candace Owens feminism debate thing?
Was that the Jubilee thing?
Yeah, Jubilee. I just think that's. I understand why people watch it, but it's just I find it unwatchable. Because
I make it 5 minutes in every video and turn.
Yeah, there's no coherent conversation because they're like, yeah, been vetted out by the majority, and it's like, well, they didn't even ask a question. Like, what the talking? But the one woman that Candace was debating looks like she was crafted out of Play-Doh. She looks like the Moon guy from NBC or whatever that was back in the day. Her cheeks are implanted, her lips are like, and I'm like, why are women doing this? I think social media is frying the brains of young people.
Yeah, it's the Instagram face thing. Everyone's
No
trying to get their face to look like
These cameras also distort your features. And
Well,
so
that and
if you're
focal
constantly
length.
filming videos like this and seeing yourself close up and you're like hyper fixated on all the flaws.
But it's the filters.
Yeah.
They're trying to get like the constant filter face so they can look like the filters while they're walking around in the real world, and that's just not
Botched face.
I think
I feel
focal
so
lengths,
sad for
too,
her.
so.
what? Yeah, well, the lens, whatever. If it's actually
The focal lengths of different lenses
35 millimeter,
distort the
22,
faces
yeah. And, like, in
totally, and like
lighting,
could widen and
yeah.
shorten. And but no, I think young women. This is a huge issue for young women that we should be attuned to and try to address because we can't have young women being this amount of self-absorbed and self-obsessed with their looks, and because that'll have downstream consequences.
Is this what you're into, Elaad?
No, that girl's not Jewish.
The lip injections make me want to just throw up, for real. Like, it's just
Well,
so
when it goes
disgusting.
past the outward part of your lip, and it feels like it's bleeding.
They just look like they got stung by a bee.
Yeah.
I'm like, ma'am, do you need an EpiPen?
You look like you could pop them.
You can some of them.
she's anaphylactic hot.
It's so messed up.
And she's likely going to get a lot more work done. You said she's only 21. I foresee her getting a ton more work done as she ages. Even it's only getting worse from here.
Because she's gonna
Well,
when she's
They
40,
get addicted to it.
she's gonna have a leather
because
face and
Leatherface.
It's like
Did
once,
you guys
once
hear
you
about?
get a little bit, the veil's off.
Did you guys hear about Mar-a-Lago face?
Yeah.
what's that?
What is that?
That's so all of the socialites you see at the big fancy parties at Mar-a-Lago, a lot of them have the face like this. It's sort of like the 40-year-old, like overfilled, over Botox kind of look with the big lips. I mean, pretty similar, but for older women. Apparently, some women are going to plastic surgeons and asking for Mar-a-Lago face.
We got this from the week. Mar-a-Lago face. Trump supporters driven by desire to please the president. What? I don't think that's it, is it?
Which is interesting because the woman he's married to doesn't have Mar-a-Lago face. Like, obviously, Melania's had some work done, but she doesn't look like that.
No.
So
There is something to say about it being extremely common in our industry too. A ton of women in our industry, people who spend time on all the news channels, have a ton of work done.
It's disgusting. Like, you can tell literally anytime someone's had work done. There's like very rare circumstances where you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize you had plastic surgery done. In almost every single circumstance, you'll see somebody's got plastic surgery. They look like freakish monsters.
No, but you don't know. I think plastic surgery is another scourge on society, but I think there is a way to do it right such that you actually can't tell. When you can tell is when somebody obviously went too far. But I think it's become apparent. I don't know the difference between Botox and filler.
Botox freezes the muscles, whereas filler replaces fat loss in the face.
I'm not trying to be sexist, but it looks like almost any woman who's a newscaster on TV nowadays has that some sort of
Almost all of them.
face.
Megyn Kelly admits to getting Botox. I mean, I know a fair amount of women who get regular Botox who you probably wouldn't know unless they told you. But I think the danger is that this stuff is very addicting because when you see yourself every day in the mirror, you're not noticing these minor changes because you see yourself every day. It's like for people who lose a lot of weight, right? Like you probably don't notice until after the first like 40, 50 pounds because you see them every day. So they don't look that different on it. It's like the paper towel effect, they call it. But I think it's the same thing with the plastic surgery. So when women see themselves every day and they're really noticing the facial features and they're like, well, I don't really see that much of a difference with this latest Botox I just got. I think maybe I need fillers in the cheeks to make the cheekbones look higher, and it quickly spirals out of control.
Yeah.
It's very normalized among women.
When you like
People tried to get me to go Botox before my wedding.
Why?
Apparently I have like minuscule forehead lines.
Well, who cares?
I know, that's the thing. It's a gift
Other
to get
women
old.
care.
Yeah,
Guys don't care.
That's what it is. It's an other woman thing to try to like compete with each other.
You know what I think it is? I think smart women tricked stupid women into doing this so they would look disgusting and men wouldn't want them.
I don't want to point out politicians specifically, but Kristi Noem, the transformation she's gone through, also did seem a little
Joe Biden.
extreme.
It's a lot.
Joe Biden.
He had a bunch of work.
as well.
I'm
I guess
gonna-
we're particular on women. I feel like
I'm
I have
gonna-
a double standard for women, but I'm sure this is men also do access a ton of different plastic surgery.
What male politicians got plastic surgery?
I think all of
Biden
them too,
definitely did.
generally.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. He's disgusting, though. He's a monster, both
sure Matt
internally
Gaetz
and
gets
John
externally.
Kerry did, I believe.
And so is he. I mean, these are awful people. Has Trump gotten plastic surgery?
Allegedly.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's a TV guy. You know what I mean?
I think all of these politicians end up getting plastic surgeries. Vladimir Putin also, I think, definitely has plastic surgery for his age. He looks very strange.
He does.
So yeah.
He looks
Yeah.
strange for his age.
He does.
Yeah,
look
his skin
strange.
looks too perfect. If you want to pull up a picture of him, and all of these,
What are you suggesting?
but he gets his work done. I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't have a
Complimenting
problem.
Putin's smooth skin.
No, but all these politicians have to try to give off an air of being youthful, healthy, young, and that helps appeal to more people. You don't want to
People
be
are
seen
saying
as
Matt
old,
Gaetz.
decrepit. Matt
People are
Gaetz.
saying Matt Gaetz. I don't know about Matt Gaetz.
Yeah,
I
he
think he's had
definitely
Botox.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe
His
Botox.
eyebrows don't really.
Just
Do
go
you
to
think
the
that
gym.
Shree
Just
guy
go
got
to
a
the
hair
gym.
transplant?
Shree's wearing a toupee.
Is he? Oh, okay.
Probably.
Actually, no. It looks like it looked real. I saw him in person.
That's way too thick.
Just go to the
Really?
gym, get in shape.
Put down the fork.
Can't grow your hair back with by going to the gym.
The thing that makes
No,
me,
you just make it
For
fall out.
Shree. Hey,
I think the thing that's really sad about the excessive plastic surgery for women, though, especially like the facelifts and the nose jobs and things, is that if you have daughters one day, your daughters are going to grow up wondering why they don't look like mommy and why mommy thought that like I wasn't pretty enough without extra stuff.
Well, I think what guys should do is just whenever they meet a woman who does this, they should go, oh, turn around. Oh, I can't look at that. No, I think a lot of guys do like it. Younger guys who are on social media are seeing that, and women are trying to get caught up so they can look like that.
Well, it is kind of a porn look.
Yeah.
We do have a
Bimbo,
lot of porn addiction in this country.
hooker. Yeah, it's called hooker face. From now on, lip injection is called hooker mouth. And then it's like, oh, I see you got the hooker mouth surgery. And then I'm like, excuse me, what? Be like, you got the prostitute thing done for the
prostitute.
ladies.
Call
of
the
the
next day. Can I get this dissolved?
To be fair, I was at the casino the other day with the boys. We were at the restaurant, Final Cut in Charlestown, and it was pretty obvious some guy had a couple escorts. You know, at least that's what everybody was assuming. I don't want to impugn the honor of this strange man I don't know. But he was like a short, chubby, bald guy with two young women who were fawning all over him. And it's like, you know what that looks like. Maybe he's just rich or whatever. But these women didn't have crazy plastic surgery and Botox or anything like that. So I think referring to these lips as hooker mouth is actually insulting the honor of hookers who don't get that stuff done. Just the weird, nasty ethos or whatever. So,
Gross.
yeah. Forgive me for impugning your honor.
I think we could negatively polarize this by comparing it to transgender surgeries.
What's the difference?
Exactly. Like that's
I actually wonder if this is
because that's what transgender surgeries are, but implants, facial reconstruction, types of Botox and whatnot.
They're different.
the facial
as
stuff.
far as implants go, it's the same exact thing, more or less. If you're a girl with small
Fine,
breasts,
but that's plastic surgery, and that's not specifically transgender surgery. When you say transgender surgery, you're talking about genital stuff.
no, these plastic surgeries
they
are trying to
do-
feminize women more.
Facial
so,
feminization
right?
There's
surgeries.
all-
Yeah,
listen,
they shave the chin down.
Yeah,
they
but
shave
those
the
are all
nose.
things that normal women will go and do at different points or different
Chin
normal-
shaving?
Some of them will, yeah, absolutely.
Getting
About the only
Adam's
thing-
apple
about the-
removed is
exactly.
part
The
of
only
it.
about the only thing they're
Yeah.
not going to do is the Adam's apple, and they're
Where,
not
like,
going
they
to get
cut
their
your skin
genitals
open.
messed.
Maybe
And
a
they,
nose
like,
job too.
Women do all kinds of crazy
The
stuff.
breast
You ever see what a
implants,
nose job
tummy
looks like?
tuck.
Shave your bone off? I don't think women
mean,
get bone shaving.
Women do get chin implants, but
Yeah.
I don't know of any. I mean, that's not to say they haven't, but I haven't heard of the shaving being a popular thing.
Transgender surgery
men get
is
men who want to
mutilation.
look like women get their jawbones shaved
That's what
down.
Dylan Mulvaney had
No,
done.
the transgender surgeries are literally mutilating the body. They don't
Yeah.
produce what they're trying to produce. If you want to go ahead, if you're a woman and you want to get like some kind of shape, if you think your jaw's too whatever or your nose is too whatever, and you want to go get plastic surgery, fine. But transgender surgery is a totally different animal because they're literally turning your genitals into hamburger.
I think all the viewers, all people are made in the beautiful image of God, and you don't need to change
women
that
in-
to make yourself feel
Yeah,
more
it-
perfect. You're already perfect the way you are.
It is common in East Asia for it's called V-line surgery, where women get their faces shaved, their bones shaved down.
So
South Korea.
those kind of things are cosmetic surgery. Transgender surgery is totally
Okay, wait, hold on. It is not common in the United States, only in trans feminine facial feminization surgery. So part of so women don't get it in the U.S. I think the reason they get it in Asia is because Koreans have rounder faces.
Yeah.
And they want to westernize, so they shave their faces down to make it, which is pretty weird.
I've heard that Korea has an even larger plastic surgery industry than the
all get
US because they have really high beauty standards.
I think it's because they want to look like Americans.
They want to look like Michael Jackson.
well, yeah,
towards
because
the
a
end.
lot of them get the eyelid surgery,
Late stage Michael Jackson.
the upper lower left, which
It's westernization.
creates eyelid
plastic surgery.
when you have hooded eyes. Some people are saying that Drake got plastic surgery because he
abs,
showed
fake
up
abs.
so with some fake abs.
What?
He has no traps, no like arm definition, but now he just has like perfect 8-pack blocky abs.
Yeah, it looks.
It's like fat abs. He has like a
Looks weird.
chubby six-pack.
Looks
It
weird and
very
creepy.
weird, especially for his age too. If you're 40 plus, it's hard to get a six-pack, man.
You mean this one?
Yeah. That oblique.
Like he looks chubby with a six-pack.
And he doesn't have the defined
He has
pecs.
no.
Yeah, that
he
looks-
has
that
no
looks fake.
deltoids. He doesn't have any traps. He has no serious definition in his biceps. His arms don't have any vascularity. If you're lean enough to see your abs, you can see the vascularity in their arms. He has none. It's
That
all
chest
fake.
tattoo is so dumb.
And look at the way that his pecs, the one that's holding up the phone, you can see that it's sagging there.
Yeah. This
And he
looks
has a
fake.
really like aggressive line down the middle.
This is a grown man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
He's an adult.
It almost looks like he's wearing one of those fake bodysuits.
It does. It's exactly what it looks like.
We have one of those. We should get it. Elaad should wear it on the show.
Because I'm so skinny.
We got it so that Ian could wear it on the show.
What are
And he
those
just looks all
liquor
buff.
bottles? I'm trying to figure out.
That's a Doers.
Yeah. Do I see Crown?
Sure, there's Hennessy.
Yeah. It actually looks pretty low end.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's not great.
I'm like, where's the Louis, bro?
Where's the nice bourbon?
This dude's got like $500 million or something. That's creepy, man. Everybody getting plastic surgery. Sooner or later, people are going to put their brains in robot bodies. They're going to neural link their brain into robots.
Absolutely.
We haven't even touched on the dieting pills, the new fads of the dieting pills.
Oh man, Ozempic.
The fat shot?
I forgot what their GLP-1 inhibitor.
Isn't it like real? Like I was reading something that said it's substantially worse than people realize, and now first they were like, "Look, you're losing weight." Then they're like, "Oh, some people went blind," but now they're saying it's causing like paralysis or something.
It feels like something that would.
Or
get
it's like-
Fertility issues too, I think.
I could be totally wrong, but like it was causing people are deteriorating. They're getting off it, but I'm thin, and then they're going like, "What's happening to me?"
Well, if you're not eating enough calories, protein, fiber, supplements, you're just losing muscle mass.
So have you seen
you have
Alex
to
Jones? I think he's allegedly on the GLP-1.
Bro,
inhibitor.
have you seen Jones's workout videos? He
Oh,
has,
yeah,
he has like
actually,
a
I
video where he
have.
did like
I
15
have.
pull-ups and he's like swinging. You saw that one? Jones is getting jacked.
You have to
for-
eat at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight
Right.
to keep on muscle. If you want to put on muscle, you have to eat like 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight. Like I have to eat like almost 200 grams of protein a day to try and actually put on muscle. It's
That's like what? One whole chicken?
one whole chicken.
Yeah.
that's like I mean like
I
so
think that's like a whole chicken.
One rotisserie
So
chicken.
this right no. This right here is 12 grams of protein.
Yeah.
So a chicken? No.
A whole rotisserie
Like
chicken
200.
is 150 to 160.
Yep.
For the whole thing.
Yeah. If a whole standard size chicken could be about 300 grams. So if you got to get more than a rotisserie chicken. You got to get 2 of them.
You got to eat a lot. I have like
I don't eat anywhere near that much. That's crazy.
I have like 4 eggs in the morning mixed with a half a cup of cottage cheese, and I have sausage, and that's like 45 or 50 grams of protein in and of itself. And that's just the start. It's a pain in the butt eating, like looking at your macros and stuff.
It's actually not as difficult as it sounds, really. In the morning, I have about 30 grams of protein, 35 to 40 actually, because I do a scoop of Jocko protein powder, and then I do 2 eggs. So that's probably like 35 maybe.
Even these things are like 25 grams of protein.
Yeah, and then we've got these protein smoothies that are awesome. I think they're like, 24 in those things downstairs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but it's not easy to eat.
And then I eat 12 chicken wings.
God, I love chicken wings.
Chicken wings, so good.
The people on Ozempic end up, I don't know if it's because of the weight loss or if it does something to their face, but it looks like it does something to their face where it
muscle
trans.
loss.
It does.
That's what it is.
It's
Like,
when you're not supplementing enough.
Yeah, you have to eat.
And I think it's sort of like the COVID vaccines where you have to calculate your risk factors, right? Like for some people, it probably does make sense if you are in the obese category or you have diabetes or sleep apnea or other things that you're struggling with, but it definitely shouldn't be a catch-all for whoever wants to lose like 20 pounds.
No.
All right, we're going to go to your chats, so smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. We're going to have that uncensored call-in show coming up at 10 p.m. over at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. It's going to be fun. We're going to screw around with some AI stuff again, so check that out. But for now, we'll read what you guys have to say. Oh, yeah, I don't know. Let me just say, when Venice says they're uncensored, we tried. I don't say anything about it, guys. We didn't do anything graphic. We just made some politically charged images that it made. And we were like, okay, it is uncensored. But anyway. Shane H. Wilder says the Texas law requiring warning labels on food with artificial colors and ingredients goes into effect in 2027. Companies are starting to change ingredients ahead of time to avoid the labels. Let's go.
nice.
That's what I'm talking about. CB says, how's it fair? One rep in Delaware represents 990,000 people, while a rep in Montana represents 542,000 people. Increased representation in the House would solve this inequality. Yes, one rep for every 15 people.
I think it's crazier in the Senate with some like Wyoming versus.
The Senate's not supposed to represent the people.
Yeah, Elaad.
They
Sure.
represent the states.
I think the power dynamic with the population.
What's the point of having an
hold on,
upper
guys.
and lower house?
Okay, guys, you got to calm down. I have just thought of a great marketing opportunity. Stickers that say deport Elaad. But Elaad, you'll get 20%.
In Hebrew, my name means God forever. So you're saying to deport God forever, and that's blasphemous and frankly anti-Semitic. So you better watch it.
But what if we give you 20%?
Not enough. Put that number up. Are you kidding
If
me?
you were to get deported to Israel, would you be okay with that?
I'm a U.S. citizen. I've only ever been a U.S. citizen, unlike some other conservative commentators in the space. So
Like who?
I don't know. I think it goes without saying. I think there's a lot of
Are you also an Israeli
malevolent
citizen?
foreign. No, I'm not. I've only ever been an American
Talking about
citizen.
Miles Chong.
No, I just think there's a lot of, again, you could like go down the list. There's a lot of people who complain about dual citizens, although they might be dual citizens themselves.
Do you guys think Ian Miles Chung is famous in Malaysia?
No.
So it's like he's just like a normal dude there. But in the U.S., he's like a well-known American conservative commentator. I don't mean he's American. I mean like in the American political space. And he doesn't live here. It's kind of wild. Could you imagine having to wake up at like 4 a.m. or like your day is 1 a.m. till...
Works third shift.
Because I don't think that's
it's gotta
unique
be
to him. There's a lot of people on social media who pretend to be Americans or imply that they're Americans and aren't at all.
Well, we talked about this because I posted a joke where I said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what your country can do for Israel. And I got thousands of retweets, and people who were pro and anti-Israel were laughing, saying, ha, ha, ha. But there were a bunch of people that were getting angry and attacking me, calling me a shill for saying it. And I think the reason is they're not American. There was a guy, and it was like American flag, and it was like MAGA, and he was like, we knew it, you're a shill for Israel. Now, the reason why I think it's a foreigner, Americans understand the quote. It's a reference to JFK, and I'm mocking the idea and the whole anti-pro-Israel like people. I was making a joke. But if you were from a foreign country where you don't speak English and you're running it through a filter, You don't see a quote from JFK being satirized. You literally see Tim Pool saying, it is important that your country helps Israel. And you're like, whoa, and you're all angry, not understanding what the joke was. So I think most of these people, that's why I tweeted, Elon should make a filter that removes anyone from outside the U.S. And I only have to look at people from America. Or I can choose. I can say U.S. and U.K., that's it.
I think
or Canada.
It was a mistake to teach the Pakistanis English. That's what I think.
All right, let's grab some more. Yakin India. Republicans need to learn the leftist art of relentless incrementalism, or they will never get anything done in any meaningful way. Yep, that's what I'm saying. I'm a reformer, not a revolutionary. Give me a grain of sand in the heap, and I will take it. Mythos says, I hope it fails so I can go back to the Senate and they can put the Short Act and Hearing Protection Act back in and fire that bitch parliamentarian. She is a product of the deep state that exists to make sure that never happens, and the system is rigged against you. We are chickens in a chicken coop. We walk around all day. We think we're in charge. There's the rooster. Chickens are walking around, and they say, hey, there's RB3, oh, Roberto Beaks III. He's the boss. And then Kim walks up, and she shoos him away, and then everyone runs screaming. And that's what we're doing. We're like, okay, Senate, get the job done, and then we're wondering why nothing happens. Because they're like, shut up, go away.
She was a former advisor to Al Gore, by the way.
That proves it.
Yeah.
Debt to RRP says the HPA and Short Act was added. Yeah, but it was stripped of what it does, right?
It takes off the fee for $200, but you still have to register. You still have to get your fingerprints. You give your fingerprints to the ATF. You still have to put your photograph in, and you still will be committing a felony if you cross state lines without ATF approval.
And it'll take you a year to get it done.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long anymore. But
all right, well,
I got 4 NFA items in the past 2 months.
Pinochet says, just pin the gambling tax right to the head of the Senate parliamentarian. Now everyone will hate her. That's the other big issue here. Regular people who play fantasy sports and who like going to casinos, that's why it's a $172 billion industry, are going to be mad at Trump's big, beautiful bill. They will use it against Trump, and they will use it in the midterms probably. They're going to be like, they're going to say, Republican so-and-so voted to increase taxes on fantasy sports. And then you're going to get all these middle-aged working class guys being like, what are you doing, huh? They're going to be pissed off. It's massively popular. People are going to get pissed.
Mm-hmm.
I think people who struggle with gambling should seek help.
Indeed, but is it struggling with gambling to play a game with your buddies and make wagers on sporting?
Some more than others, but I think the most triggered would be those who have an unhealthy relationship with gambling.
There are certainly those that exist, and I do think there's too many casinos. But again, you're talking about regular run-of-the-mill people who are downloading an app and they're playing fantasy sports with their friends and buddies. Now they're going to be going to their bar and saying, fuck Trump. They're going to be like, this motherfucker just fucking turned off my fantasy sports. Why can't I watch football and do my bets with my buddies now, man? That's what I'm saying. Vegas is going to dump money in this like crazy.
We can just go back to Venmo.
Venmo for?
You do you fill out the ESPN bracket and you Venmo each other.
Sure, but like, once again, the idea that, the challenge we have in this country is we are addicts in everything. We're addicted to entitlements. We're addicted to gambling. We're addicted to sugary foods and all this garbage. You can't Michael Bloomberg your way into the presidency by saying we're gonna ban sodas and tax sugary drinks. People will throw the sodas at you. So I'm just saying this is like this was a time bomb. They're targeting a massive industry of people who are addicted to their vice, and now they're being set up to say the Republicans did this to you. I'm already seeing the posts online from people who have nothing to do with politics. I've already got people who are professionals in the industry saying F Trump. They're like, he's screwing our industry over. He's destroying us. It's beginning. We'll see how much of an impact it can have. But again, $172 billion industry going to be pissed off at Republicans in the Trump administration.
I think the casino and hotel industry should be more concerned about Trump deporting all the illegals working at your casinos and hotels.
So compound that. Compound it.
I'm making a joke.
But no, you're not wrong. Remember Trump came out and said the hospitality industry has got to be protected? The farmers, we can't do this to the farmers. Also the hospitality.
So,
from pressure from Miller.
Yeah, because the base got
But he keeps making remarks about it, though. He said something else about the necessity of illegal immigrants here or of immigrants here to do.
I think he's trying to walk the line of
do.
making as many people satisfied with his messaging as possible, because there's been a lot of heat on the immigration front, so he might try to
We
tone
all
it back a
know
little
that
bit.
Donald Trump will go ahead and change what he's saying depending on how it's being received.
So I've had a firsthand account of, DHS and their immigration and crackdown efforts, and I mean, I've
thought you were a citizen.
Not on
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My bad.
on others. And no, it's been very impressive to see what they've been able to achieve, especially in New York.
Dewinde says, Tim, please read off the definition of gambling instead of just making logical fallacies. I'll read it for you. To play games of chance for money. Again, that means Pokemon is gambling, and they don't enforce against it, which is my point. The legal definition where lines are drawn on when something is a wager and is not is ill-defined and not enforced universally or equally. So there are going to be a ton of issues with this. I imagine the bill will end up with tons of lawsuits because they're going to be arguing. The good news is maybe for games like social poker, they'll get an official Supreme Court ruling that doesn't qualify as a game of chance for money because they'll compare it to Pokemon. But I'll send it back to the story that I had for you guys a year and a half ago, where I was talking to the West Virginia Lottery Commission, and I asked them, there's only 5 places in West Virginia where Texas Hold'em, Omaha, these kind of games are allowed. And it's in casinos. These are clearly games that are distinct from blackjack and craps, right? Social poker is a game of skill. 80% of the hands that win are not the strongest hand. It's skill-based. So why are they regulated the same while games like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh are not, despite being games of chance for money? And they told me, if it's collectible, it is allowed. You are allowed to gamble. You're allowed to make wagers and play. And then I asked them, does that mean that children playing Pokemon are allowed to gamble so long as the cards they're using are collectible? And the Lottery Commission told me yes. So we've been working on a card game called Debate Me, which is literally just Texas Hold'em, but the cards are like a golden trump card or something. And then according to the law, we're legally allowed to play literally any game we want, be it blackjack or otherwise, because the cards are collectible, which is the stupidest effing thing imaginable. The laws are not being properly mandated or enforced. Nobody knows what gambling is. Nobody knows what games are actually gambling. Again, like poker is a Texas Hold'em skill game, Pokemon skill game. They're both regulated separately as if they're different games, as if one is a game of chance and one is not, despite both of them being games of chance. So we'll see. Let's grab some more of y'all super chats. Let's see what we got going on. I see the chat is going nuts. All right. We got Wyatt Kaldenberg says, Tim, get Rebecca Bar-Seth on the culture war. She is the only Zionist who makes sense. She, Elaad Horton, and Dave Smith would make a fiery show.
What's her name?
Rebecca Bar-Seth.
I've never heard of her. I'm sure she's a great woman.
She's a Zionist.
She has to be a great woman.
Kenneth Hart says, please release a board that says touch manatees. Indeed. All right, what else we got going on here? Mike S. says, Dave Smith and Thomas Massey are not even remotely talked about in the real world outside of Twitter. Twitter people are delusional AF. Wrong. You are wrong. Dave Smith's a regular on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was on Tucker Carlson as well, and his episodes have massive viewership. In fact, some of the larger recent Joe Rogan episodes were the ones with Dave Smith, and he had him on several times. So certainly Dave is not like an A-list celebrity, but he is a topic of conversation. Bloodbase says, Tim saying Pokemon is gambling is like a drug addict saying, so what, caffeine is a drug too. Spoken like someone who literally knows nothing about the space, but I'm more than happy to read your comment. So let's talk about what Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! Are referred to as poker and chess combined. So with Pokemon, you shuffle your cards, you draw cards at random, and if you get a bad draw, oh well, you lose. Magic the Gathering is better. I know Magic more. Magic has a thing in professional play called Mulligan, where you'll draw 7 cards, and if your opening hand is bad by chance, they actually calculate your win rate based on a bad draw. And if a player takes a mulligan, their chance of winning drops by like 17%. So it is.
Don't you draw 6 as when you get a mulligan?
So they changed the rule. Now you scry. Actually they change it all the time. So I believe the current rule is you scry. Or actually I think they changed it again. You shuffle the hand back in, draw 7, choose one you don't want, and then put it on the bottom of your library or something. So since the beginning of Magic, so Magic and Pokemon are largely similar games. Somewhat different to an extent based on like how they're played, but they're
Magic's awesome.
60 card decks. You shuffle them up, you draw cards. The problem has always been that the randomization element makes it so that there are games that are just purely not skill. And then there have been professional games where the player draws 7 cards, looks down, puts face palms, shuffles, never played a single game, draws 6, slaps the cards down, shakes his opponent's hand, game over. That's not gambling, though. Never played a game, no skill was to be had. He forfeited, the guy won $100,000. Not skill. Not gambling, though. So the question is, where do you draw the line? My argument is Pokemon is gambling. Literally gambling. And I think if you want to regulate it as such, it should be regulated. I don't think children should be wagering money to try and win prizes on games of chance. But I guess Blood-Based is trying to make the argument that gambling is okay for kids so long as it's a collectible card game, I guess. C'est la vie. I think it should not be for children. Anyway, Mike S. says 90% of the population does not give an ish about this bill or Thomas Massey grandstanding over it. They care about gas prices going down. Agreed.
The economy. It's the economy.
Summer gas prices are the lowest they've been since 2019, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still too damn high.
For sure.
Well, I mean, look, low gas prices mean low everything prices. So
I'm not old enough to remember, I don't know, $1, $2, below
79
$2. That's crazy. Like,
I remember 79 cents.
you know, the picture of George Floyd with the neck on his neck with Derek Chauvin on his back.
Chauvin.
I think if you look in the back, there's gas prices in the back, and I think it was under $2
Yeah.
or something like that. And whenever I see it, I think it's a fake meme, but then I look it up, and then it's a real photo. So that should be when we start, you know, before George Floyd, after George Floyd, gas prices.
Blood-Based is
The real George Floyd effect.
Yeah.
Blood-Based is back. He says, quote, poker is not gambling, dim fool. I challenge anybody who thinks poker is gambling to explain why Phil Hellmuth has 17 World Series of Poker bracelets.
Is it gambling to send in a super chat to Tim and hope he reads it? If
It
he
is.
doesn't, it's
It is.
just a big waste.
So, again, we can make like the argument. There's an argument to be made about when something becomes a game of chance. If you are playing a game of football and it snows, are you gambling? It's snowing outside.
I mean, well, the legal definition in the courts is typically that 50% threshold of whether it's primarily skill or primarily chance.
So Texas Hold'em is about 80% skill.
I don't play Texas Hold'em.
Yes.
Sounds hard to quantify. I don't disagree with you that it's a skill-based game.
It is quantified. So the thing about Texas Hold'em is that they throw you 2 cards and you don't wager money. In Texas Hold'em, you'll be given 2 cards. You don't wager any money. You look at your cards, you throw them away, or choose to enter the pot. So there are blind bets that everyone has to do when it goes around, but you can always choose to fold and never put money in, and so just sit there and never play. So you decide based on the cards you get if you're going to pay in. Then 3 cards come out. This is Hold'em specifically. And then you make a decision again whether you want to stay in. But it's the difference between, say, Hold'em and 3-card poker, which is a table game. You'll put $20 on the table, then they give you your cards. And you go, damn, my cards suck, I fold. Whereas Hold'em, again, you are given the cards without paying and then decide if you want to play it. Big difference. And I think the studies show that 80% of hands that win poker hands, like they win the round, are not the strongest hand.
Exactly, because aggression is rewarded in poker. And almost never, I mean, it does, but a lot of the time it doesn't get to the end where everybody has to show.
But for a lot of people, this is the challenge we have in the law. People like Blood-Based don't know what the game is. And so they're imagining like you go to a you go to a table at a casino, give him $50, he hands you 2 cards and you go, what does this mean? Or like blackjack, you put money down, then they give you cards, then you decide to hit or whatever. But for games like, there's a ton of poker games like Raz, High-Low, Omaha, Big O, Texas Hold'em, 7-card stud, 5-card stud, 5-card draw, etc. All of them allow you to get cards typically before you put any money up. Some of them have antes. Usually they don't. All right, where to go? What do we got? Let's see. Ginger McIsaac says, I've seen returns where professional gamblers claimed their travel expenses as a loss on Schedule C. Gambling isn't going anywhere. This is exactly the point. If you're a pro poker player, they're saying you're being regulated as gambling despite it being substantially different of a game, and you're entering tournaments. And they say that when you fly yourself to Vegas to enter a tournament, that would qualify. That would be filed under a gambling loss. But now you can't expense. You can't expense 100% of it. So now, as a business, There are a ton of people that I know that run classes explaining the math. There's people who do like lessons on what's called game theory optimal and things like this. All of that is it's like it's like a special class of people that can't expense their businesses now. It's wild. All right, Hal Gailey says, poker tourneys aren't gambling. You aren't betting on an outcome. You are paying for entry to compete for the purse. Table games, horse and dogs, sports, call sheep, poly market, stock market, all gambling. Agreed. Again, they are treating these tournaments as though they are wagers. That's the issue. Let's go. We'll grab some more. Is this all everybody's asking about? Mike S. says, you don't have to abolish the Libertarians. They destroy themselves just like leftists.
At the expense of Republican power, though. That's the issue.
Steve Cox says, Jefferson County girls Little League softball team won the West Virginia State Championship Sunday. These talented girls will be at the IHOP and Gorilla Fireworks in Charlestown on Thursday, 9-3, raising money for their national regional championships in Irma, South Carolina.
I don't know if that's the best. I don't know.
The best?
No, to say.
I wouldn't have
Sounds
told
like a
bunch of online strangers where my daughter was.
Oh, a bunch of young girls are great at baseball, and they're going to be at this IHOP at X time.
They're doing a fundraiser.
I know. It just the way it sounded coming out.
Bro, you think someone's going to come to West Virginia and hurt the Little League girls? Like, there's going to be a guy
How many viewers are there on the show? You know, it only takes
50,000.
One stupid person to say, "Oh, this guy supports
That's
Tim."
a stupid argument.
These young women support Tim. These young girls.
I'm sorry, Elaad.
These young baseball players.
I don't give you as much flack as the audience does, but that one was over the line. The idea that someone wouldn't try to market their fundraiser is stupid. People spend tons of money to appear on Google. They spend tens of thousands of dollars, and all sorts of crazy random people are going to see it. And this dude's trying to raise money for his daughter's Little League softball team so they can go to South Carolina. And I thought it was a great thing to read because he's trying to get that money.
Did he want him to donate in person or online?
What do you mean?
Like, because it sounded like
super chatted, and I read his super chat.
Yeah, it just sounded like he was dropping that address to donate.
Right, because he wants people to show up to donate money so his kids can go play their softball championship. You got a dark mind, Elaad.
I mean, I'm super. The world's turned me so cynical recently. These past few years.
Do not come to West.
I honestly had the same reaction. I was like, some creep's going to show up.
Yeah, not in West Virginia.
I hope
not in West Virginia.
There's going to be a guy casually carrying his Barrett M82.
Oh, I know. I was looking more from the pedo angle.
Yes, there is going to be a guy casually carrying his Barrett, and when the creepy guy shows up, he's going to be turned to pink dust. This is West Virginia. This is not New York or D.C.
If you could DM me the fundraiser
nowadays than it's ever been. Like, it's safer nowadays than it was like when I was growing up. Now, granted, you don't have the ability to project that kind of advertisement so easily you do, but like it's a pretty safe world.
This was the best.
Seems like it's
$50 ad campaign anyone's ever bought ever.
Right.
Also, it also impugns the honor of the Timcast viewer as if to imply they are creepos who are going to come and do something untoward.
I think there are a lot of hate watchers.
Sure. We're going to go to the uncensored call-in portion of the show where we're going to do naughty things with AI, and it'll be fun. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. We'll see you at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Amber, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, check out dailycaller.com, also The Hills Rising and Reasons Free Media, and you can follow me on X at Amber Marie Duke.
Amber, it was really fun to talk to you on the show. My name's Elaad Eliyahu. I'm the White House correspondent and field reporter here at Timcast. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Elaad Eliyahu. Recently, I've been covering a lot of deportations by ICE, Border Patrol, ERO, outside the immigration courts in New York City, which has made for some very dramatic coverage. So please check that out. Phil?
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record is entitled Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and Deezer and YouTube. And don't forget the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all over at rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.